Okay, I would like to call the meeting to order. 7 o'clock? Yes. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, especially our residents. In attendance, we have for the board Janet, Alan, Renee, Ginny, Lynn, Sherry, Nancy, and Dick was here somewhere.
Yes, he's here.
He's here somewhere.
He's there somewhere.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Okay. Milton and Andy. Staff, we have Sherry and Susan just walked in.
Full house.
It is a full house.
The meeting is being recorded and broadcast, streamed. Just to remind everyone of our civility principles. Speak kindly, don't speak ill, accept and give constructive criticism, apologize earnestly, respect others' opinions, and respect other people's time. Anyone calling in? No? Okay. Closed meetings. There was a closed meeting of the Board of Directors on February 28th. In attendance were Dick, Renee, Lynn, Janet, Alan, Milton, Nancy, Greg, Andy, Ginny, Sherry. The vote to close was 7-1. Dick, Lynn, Janet, Nancy, Andy, Ginny, Sherry voted yes. Against, Alan and Greg abstained. Renee. It was closed under Section 3, consultation with legal counsel and legal matters. Meeting started at 10:40, ended at 12:05. Purpose was discussion of several issues with legal counsel. There was a closed meeting of the Audit Committee on March 11th, 2019. In attendance, James Young, Greg Swin, Ginny Thomas, Tim Redman, Dick Bolton. Okay, the vote to close. Apparently, it was open and closed twice. First time was 4-0-0, and the second time was 5-0-0. Let me see here. Was closed under Section 1, discussion of matters pertaining to employees and personnel, and 4, consultation with staff, personnel, consultants, attorneys, board members, and other persons in connection with pending or potential litigation or other legal matters. The first closed meeting was 7:02 p.m. to 8:37 p.m. It was reviewing consultants' audit reports. The second part of the closed meeting was from 9:15 to 9:52 p.m. Review several internal audit reports, consultation with staff, personnel, and legal matters. That's what I have for the closed meetings. Approval of the agenda. Is a motion to approve the...
And just go ahead.
Yeah. I'm a little bit confused. The meeting that we had on Saturday for 8 hours,
That wasn't a closed meeting.
well, we didn't invite residents in.
No. But it wasn't a...
But there was a majority of the board members.
Right, but that was
So what,
like one of our development sessions.
Board development
Yeah.
session.
We're also making decisions about strategic plan. This wasn't just board development.
exactly?
It was a strategic planning session.
I'm okay if you want to close the meeting, but I think we need to report it on the minutes.
I don't have a closed meeting form. All I have right at the moment, whatever the closed meeting forms are, I have.
Can I speak to that? My understanding of we're getting together, what we're doing is developing a 5-year strategic plan, goals for the 5 years. And that will be in a draft form. It'll be sent to everybody, the village boards, the village managers, the stakeholders, everybody to get feedback. So it's not like we're doing something that nobody will ever see. It's just a process thing as far as I'm concerned. And then we probably, I don't know if this is part of the process we'll decide on, maybe would have a meeting like this where we say, okay, now come to that meeting and comment in addition to everything else. So it's a very open process. I don't want anybody thinking that, at least I don't feel, no.
This meeting where residents were allowed to attend was a very open process?
I'm
I would
I'm
like,
saying
Sherry,
it's
would
a way you get,
Sherry, would you please address why the board can have the meeting that we had on the 9th and we have one coming up on the 30th?
Board is not making any decisions. at
You
these
need,
meetings.
Sherry, you need to make sure.
Board is not making any decisions at these meetings. The board is formulating a preliminary discussion plan, and it is then going to be discussed, and decisions will be made, and they will be votes taken at future board meetings. It's a logistical matter. The board has to be able to periodically get together to start the process for something. But it's not that there won't be any opportunity for public comment. And in fact, what the board was discussing at the meeting last Saturday used public comment and survey answers as a basis for the discussion. So the public has been intimately involved in this process already.
Alan?
And I appreciate all that, and I appreciate, Ginny, your sentiments around, how you're holding it. I guess I can't find any distinction between formulating and deciding. If we're formulating something, we're taking a disparate set of data and turning it into a single set of data that we're then going to be putting out. That requires decisions to be made. And my understanding is the distinction between board development sessions, where we're simply talking about how we want to work together, and something like this is a question of whether decisions are made. I get that there are other steps in the process, and yes, that the public will have an opportunity to participate, but that doesn't seem to me to be the criteria.
All right, Greg?
I was comforted that just a minute ago, Milton did call it a meeting, because it was. I wasn't there. Under that reasoning, Sherry, with all due respect, we could have our entire budget discussions on Saturdays without residents there. And then when we're finished coming to what we think the budget ought to be, we could then present it as a fait accompli to residents to say, okay, here, you can be part of the process now. We figured it out for you. That's not the way, especially with something as important as our 5-year strategic plan. We should not be doing it on a Saturday without residents and then trying not to call it a meeting to avoid the Homeowners Association Act that, of course, we're trying to get out from under. But
Some people.
anyway, it plainly was a meeting. I wish we would involve residents in something like that to at least let them spectate.
All right, Dick, real quick.
I agree
You agree with what?
with Alan and Greg.
With Greg, okay. So, okay, just so I'm keenly aware, under what part of Title 11B are we closing this meeting? On strategic planning meetings,
We
excuse me.
didn't close the meeting.
didn't close the meeting.
Because
So-
they're calling it a meeting.
So, okay, so I'm a little bit confused because when I was on the village board, we were not allowed to have a majority of our directors gather together for any purpose without basically announcing it and calling it a meeting, closed or open.
I can't comment on what your village
So-
did.
So basically, we can have a gathering of the board at any time, at a bar, here. We can discuss anything we want, and it's not a meeting, and then walk in here and vote on it.
Unless this corporation is in the habit of conducting its operations and conducting its business in a bar, yes, you can gather in a bar and drink together, and it is not a meeting of the board.
That was not the purpose of going to the bar. I'm saying that we could meet at a local coffee shop, the majority of us. We could make decisions about the future of Columbia.
No, you cannot make decisions.
Bring
That's the whole
that
point.
group's decisions into here, into an open session, and vote on them.
Well, that is something you should not be doing. You should not be making decisions.
But we are making them in the strategic planning.
Do you really want 100,000 people to come to?
Yes.
a
The answer is yes. I want to
We-
open
we-
Columbia to the
we have-
residents.
We have on the work session scheduled for April the 11th. The strategic plan will be presented to the public with the board following our work session on this coming Saturday.
Right, so you just called it a work session, so it needs to be open to the public.
Also, you said we're presenting it. If we're presenting something, it means we decided something.
That's
To
right.
present. We decided what to present to the community.
The board have to have the opportunity to present a strategic plan. That's part of being a corporation.
Okay, every homeowners association is a corporation.
No, that is not true.
Okay,
This one is.
this one is,
Yes,
okay, so what are they?
some of them are just associations.
Okay,
Not everyone's a corporation.
all right, but many are.
So,
So they don't have, it's against the law to have closed meetings unannounced.
the session that we had the last session that we had and the session that is coming up were sessions in which you had staff as well as board can I finish?
Yes, ma'am.
Equal participants in the process. That is not a board meeting. That will never be a board meeting.
I didn't say it could be a work session.
No, it can't. Because we have work sessions on the second Thursday of every month, which are work sessions that involve discussion among the 11 board members and do not involve any input, comment, or anything else from the staff, at which the staff has no entitlement to vote on anything. This is a very different type of gathering.
And
It
the
is
only reason
not
why
a
it's-
meeting of the board.
And the only reason why staff had equal, which I agreed with, equal footing with the board during that meeting, so the board allowed it. So that means the board made a decision to do that.
You know, I could say you only want to hear from the public and you don't want to hear from your own staff. Is that what you're saying, Alan?
Wait a minute,
That's
wait a
what
minute.
it's sounding like. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's,
Let me
yeah,
just
let's
say,
say, okay.
You go.
She asked me a question.
Go.
The answer is no.
Right.
I'd rather hear from both. And what has only been said is to allow the public to be present, not
They
to,
will be on April 11th.
while we are deliberating things.
I have a lot of respect for our residents. They pay our freight. They're paying the assessments for all of us to be here and the staff. They have a right to be heard from the beginning. I'm going to drop the conversation, but I just want you,
Right. Yeah, I mean, well, I'm sure this conversation will come up again.
yes,
Yes.
it will.
Okay.
Go right
It's,
ahead.
it's not funny, first of all.
No.
Second of all, Sherry, there's no exception in the Homeowners Association Act for corporations.
That's right.
That corporations don't have to comply with it, whether they're a corporation
I
or
never
not.
said that. All I did was respond to Renee's comment that all HOAs
Okay,
are
wait,
corporations,
let's-
You
which
got
they're
upset.
not.
You got upset when she butted in on you.
All right, this is a cross
Okay.
conversation
That's number
here.
one. Number two, how about, I think all that some of us would like now is at least noting it, that there was a meeting, noting this in our minutes, that there was this thing that, you quacked like a meeting, walked like a meeting, did everything like a meeting, that you don't want to call a meeting, that Milton called a meeting. Either way, just note that in the minutes somewhere so there's a public record that this in fact occurred. Because right now, there's no record of it.
This is, the Saturday meeting is a meeting. There is no way of getting around it. We don't have to invite the public to participate in it to make residents speak out or anything, but there is absolutely no reason to hold it behind closed doors. We're not talking any secret stuff. We're not talking about personnel matters. We're not talking about financial matters or legal matters. We are trying to define the future 5 years of the organization, figure out where we're going, and the public has every right to sit in there while we chat about this and hear what we're saying and be prepared at a meeting, an official meeting during resident speak out to talk about it. But I am getting sick and tired of all these closed meetings that don't need to be closed. And I'm hearing from residents, what's going on. This last fiasco, the CBA fiasco, is a perfect example of why we shouldn't be having these closed meetings.
I move,
Okay, I'm gonna
I
ask.
move that we note in tonight's minutes that the Saturday session was held.
Second.
you know, it was in my report. I mean, it's, which is part of the record.
What record?
It's part of all
I-
background.
I thought that it should be noted where we have the section on closed meetings with the vote to close the meeting.
It was not a closed meeting.
Saturday was not a closed meeting.
Was the public allowed?
No. I asked that question.
Correct. So, again, all I'm asking is to be noted in the minutes, and Howland seconded the motion.
Valerie will note it. Yeah, it's all part of the conversation too.
Now, we have to have a vote on the motion, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay. All those in favor?
Of noting it in the,
Yeah, no,
finish it,
minutes.
of noting it in the minutes.
Minutes.
Right.
Oh, well, that's no.
Janet, Alan, Renee, Jenny, Lynn, Dick, Sherry, Nancy, sorry,
Dick.
Craig. I got Dick, I saw Dick, Andy. All right,
What was your vote, Andy?
I said yes.
Okay.
You said say unanimous.
It was unanimous.
All right, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jenny.
Jenny did. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay. Disclosure of conflicts, none. Let's go to resident speak out. Valerie? First up, is it Sunit? Sunit Misra. Welcome, Sunit. Sunit? Yeah. Yes, if you would, and please, if you could speak into the mic so that people can hear it and we can record. And so let me remind everyone that 3 minutes per individual, 5 minutes per group, and 2 minutes to respond. And Dick is our official timekeeper. Welcome, Sunil.
Okay, I live in the Owen Brown Village, and we've been getting overflights that are quite low because of the next gen. It really amounts to a corporate giveaway to airline corporations. We're getting flights, and thanks to smartphones, I'm able to get exact altitude, the type of airplane, the company that's flying the airplane, registration number. We're getting flights as low as 650 feet over our homes. That is about 2 football fields that can be walked in not very long. We're getting decibel readings of 85, 90, 75 regularly. I work as a behaviorist, and I've taught at Johns Hopkins, and this particular phenomena of intermittent flights that happens every minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, couple of days it doesn't happen because the wind is not blowing southeast, and then it happens again and again and again, is an intermittent schedule of punishers. And what that is a similar schedule that's used by wife abusers, spousal abusers, child abusers. And what that means is that you can never predict when the next overflight's going to happen, so moments of quiet are never quiet. I have a neighbor that is in tears. Myself, I cannot use my yard anymore. I started staying inside more. Lake Elkhorn is no longer really pleasant much of the time to walk around. I started gaining weight, started getting anxiety, had to be put on anxiety medications, upped my blood pressure medication. And I say that's just anecdotal. And I started to do my own research. I went to PubMed, which is a medical database. And what I found is that there's toxic harm to physical, this toxic noise harms physical health. Higher rates of blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, heart attack, strokes, interrupted sleep, which I know as a behaviorist causes attentional problems for children, sleep problems. It harms mental health, higher rates of depression, anxiety. As I said, it's an aversive. It particularly harms children, overnight workers who are trying to sleep during the day. The FAA is using decibel averaging. My concern is with BWI. I have a letter from the FAA that says that the airport manager at BWI, which is Ricky D. Smith, is responsible for managing sound. I would like the board here to back the residents, and where the organization from above is failing, to help organize from below. I'm finding people in my neighborhood, and I've talked with several streets around me, dozens and dozens of homes. People do not know where to complain. The complaint that is available goes nowhere. That data is meaningless. They don't do anything with it. So I would like, if at all possible, to get information into the hands of residents, and I'm willing to do the volunteer work to make that happen.
Thank you, Sunil. Jenny?
Yeah. I'm going to be brief about this because this is a long story, but Oakland Mills Village Board did a resolution supporting this whole, our residents on this issue. I would like you to maybe talk to Paul Verchinsky, who's on the
I
Oakland.
know, I've talked with Paul Verchinsky.
Okay, so you got
and
the whole picture
a more
about what's going on.
depressed person I hope not to meet.
What?
He's very depressed.
all
And
right,
he has
all right.
said to me that he's depressed because the FA has walked away from the round table.
Okay, I just
Nothing
want to
is
make
happening
sure.
at the round table.
Of anybody I know, he's got the best
I
background. in the
like
whole
him.
thing.
He's a good man,
Yeah.
but nobody's talking to that round table.
Then the other thing is Calvin Ball, the county executive, and also your council person, I guess, is Christiana Rigby.
Well, I'm in District 4. I'm talking with that representative next week, or actually their assistant next week. And I'm volunteering with the Sierra Club to try to get the research information there, because right now, I was shocked to find the health effects.
Okay, well, what I'm trying to say to you is, people have been working on this for a couple of years, so rather than, I'm trying to save you a lot of time, is Brian Frosch has sued, Hogan has, Kittleman has. There's a lot that's been done, and I was trying to save you from redoing it all. And instead, what's really needed is what you just said at the beginning, is action on the part of Owen Brown residents. You need to go to your board and get them to take action too.
Well, organization from below is what's needed, because what's happening from above is nothing. We don't even get updates from the lawsuit, so we have no idea what's happening.
Alan and Dick and Shari.
So I guess what I'm not exactly clear on, I'm supportive, and we've talked around this issue, we've talked about in the past couple of years, we've talked about noise from Merriweather and similar health concerns and so on. What is it that you'd like from us?
I think that, part of this is that decisions like this should be made in teams. They shouldn't be made by one person or my wish, because my wish may not be fully informed. My feeling is that what's needed is, first, I'm shocked that residents really do not know what this problem is. You think you're escaping the health effects of noise because it doesn't particularly bother you. You're not. And you're not escaping the financial effects. So what I want is for Columbia Association to get the health effects information out into the hands of residents, as much as if there was a toxic danger to the neighborhood. This is like having a toxic dump placed in the middle of Columbia. And we're not even talking particulate pollution, which I have heard from people on the roundtable, that when they leave out things, they're finding particulate pollution because they keep flying the same routes again and again and again. We no longer have children playing in our neighborhood. We used to. The toddlers and little children are inside. Eventually, the home values will suffer. Research says about 20% of home values will go down. For my house, that means $60,000 to $70,000 down. We have 2 homes in our neighborhood that have not sold yet, and I myself have seen people stand there, look up as planes go, and leave. Eventually, this is going to have an impact on Howard County taxes, and it's going to have an impact on house value assessments, and it's going to have an impact on CA budgets. So I would ask that the CA wake people up, help wake people up, and it doesn't have to be done tomorrow, but I would be happy to work with the CA. I'm going to be working with the Sierra Club to try to organize information to people. So that's the help that I need. You all have the emails, you have the, whatever ways you have of contacting people. We need to get that information into the hands of people. I mean, I wasn't aware that I was having the health effects I was having. And when they started measuring my blood pressure, it was 180, over 120. And I didn't think I had that problem. So we're talking, the Boeing has had an air crash, 157 killed. I wonder how many people have had cardiovascular problems, strokes and heart attacks, let alone depression and anxiety, because I go to the roundtable meetings, some of them, and people come in crying. So I want something done by Columbia Association, and I'm willing to help do it.
Thank you. And then Char.
Oh, I was just following up on what Alan said. So I just want to understand specifically what you're looking for is our help in communication.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Char.
Yeah, I'm very sympathetic to what you're saying, and I have heard this from many people who live around Lake Elkhorn, that it is the incessant passing over of the planes with no relief. And so that sense of helplessness kind of sets in. I wonder if there isn't something that we could be doing to monitor the lawsuits that have gone forward, number one. And number two, to contact some of the other communities around the country who are dealing with this very same issue. This is not just Maryland. This is many, many communities with large airports all over the country, and those communities are experiencing the same thing. So maybe that's something that we could take a look at, to at least be a liaison in getting that information to people.
At this stage, what I see when I talk to people, just offhandedly at the roundtable and elsewhere, is that efforts are currently disjointed. So Anne Arundel may have some groups, Howard will have some groups, Baltimore County will have some groups, but nobody's talking. And right now, I say let Tucson be Tucson. Let Phoenix be Phoenix, and let Wisconsin, that had the Quiet Skies movement, let them do what they got to do. We got to fight it here. And that means that some of these groups that are first, this is a big community. And so to organize the voices of that community is a big, big thing that we can do. That's where I think we can do something. I want to see that sort of organization from below. And by the way, you mentioned noise. Airplane noise is not average noise. Airplane noise is low frequency noise. And that means you have to up your attic insulation, you have to change your windows. I've already done both. And you have to take care of all the outlets facing exterior walls. And there is nothing you can do about sound coming in through the walls. I have talked to people and architects from Florida to Arizona to Minnesota. There's nothing you can do. So other than tear down your walls and rebuild. So it is money out of our pockets, but eventually it's going to impact CA budgets and the state budgets. And they offered the FAA, well, let's move the route down just a bit. I'm not willing to have someone else pay the price for me. I want to stand and fight where I stand. So for that, I am willing to do slave labor for Columbia Association to help organize people and put that together. I did bring with me, and I'll be happy to leave with you, something that was a response that I gave to the roundtable on the health effects of this, and along with it are just a small sample of the peer-reviewed research journal articles that I have synopsized and put together as support for what I'm saying. I mean, I try to be very careful and not go beyond the research. So, and my experience is bad, but it's anecdotal. But what I've come to learn is, you may think it doesn't bother you, it's raising your blood pressure, it's causing you problems, and you don't know it. It's like overeating salt.
Thank you, Sunil. Next up, we have Vikram? Vikram.
All right.
Welcome.
Yes. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you all and to see you all. My name is Vikram Misra, and I have been living with my father at 7025 Flint Feet Lane in Columbia, Maryland. It since I was a baby, since I was like 1 year old. And I used to believe that Columbia was a sanctuary. I would see birds in the springtime. And the skies would be nice and quiet and blue. Lake Elkhorn was beautiful. And then just the gradual crescendo, the thundering of airplane noise, and I just saw my father and just take a look at those airplanes, and it just caused and my father, when he says that he has to take anxiety medications, he is not kidding. And you know what? He's not alone. This stress that the airplane noise is causing, it's raising stress, and stress, as we all know, causes so many health problems, from cardiovascular disease to cancer. Oh, and that's not the only thing that's causing these diseases. The air pollution, people in communities with air pollution, like the air pollution from planes, are at high risk for not only asthma, you may have heard about the asthma risk for polluted areas, but also many other diseases, including cancer. Actually, the two that come to mind immediately are asthma and cancer. So not only have they taken away your sanctuary and your peace and quiet, they have taken away your health. They are slowly making you sicker and sicker and sicker. And they're also taking away the beauty of Columbia. I used to see birds all the time. There are fewer and fewer birds in our neighborhood, and it just makes Columbia a less welcoming place. I saw the FAA and the airlines take away our peace and quiet, and I shudder to think of what they will take away next. Don't let them take away your peace and quiet, because what they take away next is something you really don't want to think about.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Andy, before we move on, if I could just take a moment, I just got an email. Just want to let people know that apparently there was a shooting in the apartments near Kaler Hall, not in Kaler Hall, but near Kaler Hall. And it's unknown at this time if anyone was hurt or what's going on. The police are already involved. So just wanted to let people know.
Next up, we have Russ Swartek. Welcome, Russ.
Swartek? Did you just
Swartek.
say Swartek?
Swartek.
You gotta take over that responsibility now.
Russ Watex, wonderful village of Longreach. As some of you know, I've been on the board before for 4 years. Okay, I guess first item, I just added to my list, 3 of us are meeting with the Howard County Environmental Health Department officials tomorrow to talk about how they're going to monitor and control Merriweather noise. And that has some of the same effects on neighboring residents that these gentlemen just talked about for airplanes. There have been people that can't stand it. There are people that have moved their business out of Howard County due to it. There are people that have moved, so now they have apartments that face away from Merriweather. Just to be noted, Merriweather's still a problem. Came here to talk about 3 items. Take the least one first. Marketing. My wife and I enjoy going to Columbia Gym a lot, plus we're on some of the CA emails, and we feel like we're constantly being marketed. It seems heavy-handed, all the marketing things we get. Second item is you have an ethics change on your agenda tonight. Disallow someone running for office and being a board member. I understand you had a problem recently, but that's really, I think, overkill approach. There are other ways to handle it if someone is being a problem. The CA members, which is the 10 of you, have the power to remove a person, village representative as a director on the board. So if it really comes to problem, you can take action. But I've seen people run for office while they were board members, and it did not impact their board member duties at all. So I would ask you not to pass this ethics change tonight. Handle it another way. My third item on my list was really the business versus HOA aspect. And I was thankful that you guys really talked about it opening up this meeting. I've seen it as a problem for years, that the upper management here really views CA as a corporation, forgetting at times that it's the residents' HOA and they have a right to full information at all times. I mean, yes, you can go into secrecy at times, and yeah, you might save a little bit of money or maybe a little bit of embarrassment, but you give up far more in terms of the respect of your residents. I would ask that you do whatever is necessary to make your upper management realize that CA is primarily the residents' HOA. And Renee, welcome to the board. I hadn't met you before. From what I've heard already, I like you.
Thank you, Russ. Any questions for Alan?
Yeah, two questions, Russ. I'm not clear if your point is that we can remove a board member. That's what the policy says. If somebody's doing it, we can remove them. So I'm not, so are you simply saying wait till it's a problem and then remove them?
If it is a problem. Because I say, I've seen board members run who
Wasn't a problem.
weren't a problem.
Got it.
I
Second
think-
thing is, I just have to tell you, and I'd be interested in your reading, my reading, it differs from some others, but my reading of our charter is that it's only the villages that can remove their Columbia Council representative. So I'm
Go
not
back and
clear.
look at your bylaws. I think it's section
Yeah.
2.03.
But the charter supersedes the bylaws. So,
I looked at the bylaws. I have to admit, I didn't look at the charter.
thank you.
But according to your bylaws,
I get that.
the village can't remove a person. They can require you to do it, but it's really the members that can do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Chris Oliva. Welcome, Chris.
Good evening. I put a couple of papers on your desks, but I have three things myself. First of all, I just want to report to you on the appeal of the Royal Farms, which you all are parties to that case. Mr. England filed a revisory request. The approval doesn't meet the Howard County Administrative Procedures Act. And so he filed that. And in addition to that, he's going to be filing a request to the zoning board for a declaratory ruling. And that's the document excerpted that I put here with the Howard County, it's an application. And I think that this would be a useful action to take. In addition to the Royal Farms, there are several other developments that are pending. And essentially, this would require the zoning board to rule on the 5 things that are on page 2 here regarding the proper administration of the floating NT zone. And so I just leave that with you here. And this is in the works right now. In addition to that, I wanted to speak about the East Guilford industrial restrictions. Mr. England is going to convene the owners. He's been reaching out to them to keep that going and get it done. That's very important. The third thing, I brought an article from 2006 regarding the easements. And I don't have anything to do with the easements here, but I notice every time I'm here, you guys are always dealing with them, okay? And it's kind of a legacy thing. A lot of times, the developer put a spite strip around properties. There's a property called the Narang property in King's Contrivance, which is slated for 23 townhouses right now. And there's a strip of land right along Edenbrook, so they can't access Edenbrook. What I would suggest is that an inventory be taken, and maybe you've already done it. You guys do a lot of things, and you have a lot of staff. And where appropriate, do quit claim deeds for these strips of land. And that way you wouldn't have to be dealing with these easements all the time. And apparently in 2006, there was a problem with an easement. I'm not sure or not, but this is a long time ago. But this would just streamline everything for people like the Narang property. I mean, I think they've resolved their issues. I'm not exactly up to speed on what it is. But in any event, just wanted to bring that up. And then finally, I brought to you last year, I believe it was, the CSX right-of-way in the East Guilford Industrial Park. And I provided to you all the plats, all the deeds, and I just wanted to, follow up on that issue. So I think that's it. Thanks so much.
Just, Chris, one quick question. You said filed an appeal. With whom? I just wasn't sure. Was it the hearing? It would be the hearing examiner? Or
Actually,
the
that
Board of
hasn't
Appeals?
been filed
Oh, that hasn't been
yet.
filed. Okay.
But a revisory request has been filed if the decision. What's that?
Back off from the mic a little bit.
If the decision, if you feel the decision was erroneous because of mistake or fraud or some error, you have the right to request a revisory opinion. And the problem is that their decision does not comply with the Howard County Administrative Procedures Act.
Okay. Thank you. Alan?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused by parts of this. We should do quit claim deeds because we should quit our claim to some land, or we should.
I'm not proposing that you do every quit claim. I'm saying that there's land, and some of it's entitled in Howard Research and Development's name, and it's a big mess. And then you guys have to deal every time. I saw on your agenda tonight, you guys have to deal with an easement, and then I think that it could be addressed in a more comprehensive way, which would streamline it for everybody.
Okay. And you said around the CSX right away, you wanted to follow up. I'm not exactly sure. Are you asking us to do something, or are you asking what we've done, or what?
Yeah, I'm asking what you've done. I came to you and I said, what you need to do is contact General Growth Properties, now Brookfield Asset Managers. They're the ones who hold the right of reversion on the rights-of-way there. And all they have to do is notify CSX, and then the land will revert right back. And I had suggested to you that GGP assign those rights to CA. CA doesn't have to exercise those rights. They would just have them, and when people wanted to do a pathway or something over there, they could then exercise those rights. But until then, it would be owned by CSX. They would just assign their reversionary right.
Have we followed up any thinking,
No, we have not.
Okay, I'd be interested in staff's thoughts about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Next up, we have Ginger Scott. Welcome, Ginger.
Good evening. I'm Ginger Scott, and I live in Wild Lake. First, I would like to thank Andy for maintaining his calm demeanor during your now infamous meeting at the Interfaith Center on March 6. Tom and I have attended many red-hot CA meetings, but this one was over the top. Andy's civility reminded me of Kipling's often quoted poem, If, which says in part, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and, which is more, you'll be a man, my son. I'm sure we all got a graduation card with the if in it. I want also to share with you my concern about CA's substantial departure from the approved plans for Fairway Hills Golf Course. Stream buffer creep has been part of the course's construction and maintenance since well before the course even opened. I have watched aghast at CA operators, as CA operators bulldozed young trees and significant shrubs that were well within even a modest buffer to the stream behind my home. Most of this wanton destruction occurred on someone else's watch, not that of Mr. Burns. However, the relative impact may be greater with today's mowing simply because Mr. Burns had so little buffer to begin with. There are places where the stream buffer must be measured in inches. The ideal is 75 feet. When buffers are intensely mowed, nuts can't sprout to become saplings. Saplings can't grow into trees. Tree roots can't stabilize stream banks. Trees can't become canopy. Canopy can't cool the land or the stream. CA has some fine environmentally oriented staff members who could assess the health of Fairway Hills streams and banks and their buffers. If you ask them to, I'm sure they could recommend a plan to remediate damage already done and to prevent more in the future. As you consider what to do about this course, I hope you will give them a seat at your table.
Thank you, Ginger. Any questions? Alan?
Yeah, a couple of questions, Ginger. Thanks for coming. When you say approved plans, I'm just curious, approved by whom?
Oh, I think it would have been the state and the county at some level. I think it was probably the DNR for the state, and I'm not sure which county agency.
So when you say substantial departure, it's what you're asserting is that we are not complying with the plans that.
Yes, that is my assertion.
Okay. And the ideal being 75 feet, is that, do you get that number from those plans, from those?
I did not get it from those plans. I believe that in relatively recent years, the county has been requiring 75-foot stream buffers in areas outside of Columbia.
Okay, and the only last thing I'd say is that the folks on our staff who know about the environment, for me, it's more about will they give me a seat at their table, because I depend on them to be the expert. So thank you very much for.
Thank you, Alan.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ginger.
Thank you, Andy.
Next up, we have Alex Akemian. Alex, welcome.
Hello, for the record, my name is Alex Akemian. I live in Oakland Mills, former CA board member. Most of you know on this board that I have been an advocate for openness and transparency at CA for a long time. And Greg, Nancy, Shari, and Andy all can confirm that I often voted against what I believed were unjustified closings of meetings when I served on this board. That's why when I see that nowadays you close so many meetings, it makes me wonder whether each of you are aware of and have read the restrictions for closing meetings under the Maryland Homeowners Association Act. Meeting privately, for example, to discuss a court case that was already in the public domain, or to discuss crafting legislation, or to even discussing strategic planning were clearly not warranted under state law to be closed. And even if any other topic of discussion would qualify within the narrow list of reasons to close a meeting under state law, you may close it, but you are not required to close it under state law. So against your better instincts, why has the majority of this board voted to keep the people of Columbia in the dark on such publicly important issues? And who urged you to do so? You know, the motto at the Washington Post is, democracy dies in darkness. Granted, CA has never claimed that it is democratic, but it can't operate like a privately held business either. No, you're not a business. No business can require every property owner to make a payment to it every year. CA is more like a government because it provides community services and requires a tax-like annual charge. And because of that, CA has a special obligation to its residents to be more accountable and to operate in a more open and transparent manner. The negative reaction in the packed house at the March 5th informational meeting showed that CA has lost the trust of many people in Columbia. Don't you think that it would make matters even worse if you seem to pay no mind and keep meeting in secret on various issues? Now that people have found out that this board relied on faulty advice to circumvent the restrictions on closed meetings and privately discussed ways to exempt CA from the Maryland Homeowners Association Act, it's no wonder that the staff's proposal of a community benefit association or anything like it is now labeled a non-starter in our community. You would be wise to waste no more time on such ill-conceived legislation, which already has 3 strikes against it, and to now shift your attention and use your limited time and energy to more productive matters at CA. Restore trust in CA.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions? Thank you. Next up, Joel Horowitz. Joel. Welcome, Joel.
More there is up in the back. No, council did. So do we need them that way, or did they get the email?
We got the email.
Yep.
All right, first of all, I guess I agree with the meeting discussion. There seem to be 5 of you that are opposed to this meeting. If there's a 6th vote, I guess you want to have a meeting, or if it's not called a meeting, maybe if you all don't show up, then it won't be a meeting. Generally here to talk about the ethics policy, which is why I've started coming about 5 or 6 years ago to these meetings. At the beginning of the policy, it states that if law conflicts with the special requirements, you follow the law, and if the customs, you follow the special things. However, there's no concern of the conflict with your charter, the bylaws of the Articles of Incorporation, or bylaws of the village associations. In particular, adding restrictions, as Alan pointed out, on membership violates the Harper's Choice Articles of Incorporation, I believe many of the other ones. The requirement for Harper's Choice rep is to own property. You need not live in Columbia. What is preventing CA from making a residency policy, or a minimum age of 25 years, or a maximum of 70, or a term limit of 8? Any of these policies is subject to being waived by the majority whim of the board. The Articles of Incorporation in the 3rd Section 3 of Harper's Choice state that the Columbia Council is an unincorporated association, the membership of which should be composed of representatives of various associations in Columbia, which have been approved by CPRA. Said council, in turn, being entitled to nominate from among its membership persons to be elected to serve on the board of CPRA, all as provided in the Articles of Incorporation of CPRA. 7.3 of your charter parrots this language. CA takes all of the council members without restrictions on qualifications. The removal provisions therein in the charter reference back to those of the villages, not the CA's policies. You serve on the CA board, it also says, until your successor is elected and qualifies. Going back to qualifications, adding one for conflicts, age, residency, not specified in the charter, or at least by reference to those in there to the CA bylaws. And to the statutory provisions I referenced in 2104, it talks about the corporation law that the Articles of Corporations may put limits on the directors, but anything that may be included in the bylaws. And then it says in 2110 that the bylaws may contain any provisions not inconsistent with law of the charter. And then the nonprofit provision specifically says, dealing with the charter or bylaws, that you can prescribe the rights, privileges, and qualifications of your members, or prescribe a tenure, but no class of the director may be elected for a shorter period than the interval unless, then it has an exception,
the qualifications have the effect of shortening their tenure of office. Adding a conflict provision is contrary to the intent and not the spirit of the law, and a contract provision would be permissible exception to shortening the tenure, but only if it is in the charter or the bylaws and not a separate policy. And you also have a lack of logic, as somewhat pointed out, that you had a problem with running for office. Can't be in a partisan office, but you could still be appointed to the school board technically. You can run for a partisan committeeman. You can be appointed committeeman because those aren't elected offices. You can serve on DPZ or Columbia staff without a problem. And finally, if you do decide to do this, as a drafting matter, I would amend section little 10, or the alternative, make it little 11, and renumber 11 to 12, because adding it as 12, it just doesn't make sense in the list that you have there if you do insist on doing this.
Thank you, Joel. Any questions? Greg?
Joel, thanks for coming in. Are you saying that if we want to do this, we need to do it in the bylaws?
I think it should, to comply with the village, it seemed to be better in the charter. But I think if you at least reference some provision in the charter provision and say the qualifications as expressed in the bylaws, that would at least flow clearly, and it wouldn't allow you to waive the rule on as you did in the past years with some of these conflict of interest provisions.
So yes, we could do this in the bylaws with this type of restriction?
Under
your reading of the law?
Yes,
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Joel.
Oh, wait, Alan has.
Oh, Alan, I'm sorry. Alan?
So do you believe we currently, as our documents are laid out, have the ability to remove a member of the council?
Your bylaws do say that you can remove it. It didn't seem to say why.
Right.
It seems a little in conflict with your charter provision that's silent on that and references back to the village association removal and/or vacancy or recall provisions, which Russ mentioned earlier.
That's why I wanted your opinion, because the charter, I don't know, is actually silent. The charter says each member and director so elected shall serve, as you quoted, until the next annual meeting, his successor duly elected and qualifies, except that if the members of any, so this is the only exception that's brought up here, except that if the members of any incorporated association remove or recall their Columbia Council representative through a procedure in there. So
right, so that's referencing back to the village association, right. But your bylaws do have a provision for removal, which doesn't say any reason of why it should and doesn't go back to the charter.
My understanding is the bylaws are subservient to the charter. So if the charter says that these people shall serve, shall, as I understand, an important legal word, and the only exception is if the village recalls them. To me, that's, I'd like your opinion, to me, that's the charter not being silent, that's the charter being explicit, that that's the only way to remove.
Yes, your charter references back to the villages. I think it's silent on whether you can remove somebody. It would seem that it would be better to put some of the bylaw provisions into that section. The fact that this is not a law, this is a thing that you can easily amend with a couple of months' work and not have these problems. You make your own rules in your charter and your bylaws, and the fact that you are unwilling to follow them is a little annoying. The fact that technically, if the council actually met separately or appointed somebody, let's say the HCCA representative, and the council was an entity that's a little bit different than you, then technically you could be somehow a member from the village council, but not put on the CA board, because if your charter said we're only taking the 10 villages, or other if you wanted to start taking less than 10 of you, I guess you legally could. It would, because that's what the Harper's Choice says, but it would be a political problem that some of you will not be on the CA board. But I think technically the council doesn't have, there's nothing making you take out members of the council. Okay. But it needs to be in your governing documents, not these other things that keep piling up. I don't even know how many ethics rules there are now. They seem to be multiple ones.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Anyone else? That's the last. Sure. Sure, if you please come up and just give us your name so we.
So
Could you please speak into the mic? Too?
Yeah, I'm Liz Schoen. I live in Wild Lake. And I just want to say I agree with everything that Alex said. And the other thing I want to say is that I'm sitting here and reading the mission statement. And it strikes me that this is much more a marketing statement than a mission statement. And since you're doing your strategic planning process, I really hope you will reconsider the mission statement, which, in my estimation, needs to include the residents of Columbia who pay the annual charge and the villages, because we are essential to what you do. You don't have a mission without us. You don't have an existence without the money we pay to you. And we belong in that statement.
Thank you, Liz. Any questions? Thank you. Okay, that's all I have. No. All right. Chairman's remarks. The written report, which, by the way, lists meetings. What I want to also say, I want to thank the Sister City committee and staff for putting on the event last Sunday at the mall. It was very, very nice. And I think good attendance. I also want to thank all the CA folks who helped with the healthy eating event on Monday. I mean, it was a record crowd. They sold out, well, did free tickets, but Jim Rouse Theater. But they had a really good crowd and a really nice set of vendors. So it was a great kickoff, and there are going to be more. And then lastly, I think all of you have the Columbia Promise TV announcement, TV film announcement for you, and I encourage all of you to sign up for it.
That's different from the HCCA.
It's different. This is a one done by Maryland Public Television.
We're going, yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be at Smith Theater, I think, in April. But I would, yeah, you need to register.
I think it's April 25th.
Yeah, so I would encourage you all to register. Any questions? If not, move on. President's report. Milton, anything you want to?
Any questions? Anyone have? Yes.
Just on page 2, where they say the Clippers team came in second the first time in their history. I don't know if you guys ever did this in the past, but I was just wondering if we couldn't do a resolution or a letter from the board congratulating them. I know I had asked for this in terms of, I can't think of his name, but the gentleman that picks up trash along Broken Land Parkway.
Columbia Bike Guy.
What?
The Columbia Bike Guy.
Yeah, but I had asked 8 months ago that we do that, and it's on a to-do chart, but I've never seen it. And so I'm just thinking that might be nice, however you guys feel about it. Clippers are our team. They're our guys. And we don't have to put it on an agenda, I wouldn't think. I would think if staff developed a resolution, Andy signs it, and it gets given to Jeff or the Clippers or Marty or Fondick or Harry, whatever. I don't know. What do you think?
I like the idea.
It's silence, okay.
I
See,
think it's a great idea.
is that all right?
Who would take it?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea too. I would also just let people know that Harper's Choice did do a resolution around that. God, I wish I remember the guy's name. I should know.
Clark or
Jeff.
something like that? Or Jeff, the head coach?
No, I'm talking about the
If you look on
guy
the-
who picks up trash everywhere.
If you
the
look on
Columbia
the
Bike
board
Guy.
list, his name is there.
Yeah. Anyway, so that and he was presented with the award, and it was a nice thing.
Maybe we could just copy it? Never mind.
I'll get you a copy. Milton, a couple questions. I appreciate that in some of the areas there was mention of challenges. I will say that what stood out for me, unfortunately, was the lack of challenges faced by administration or planning or community services or energy.
Basically, it's open. They can present challenge. I don't want them making up challenges, and so if there's a challenge they can put out, I say please put it in. But if it's not one, they're not required to.
I'm all in favor of not requiring anybody to asking anybody to make up anything. I'm also, as a leader, wanting my people to face their challenges. So thank you.
They're facing their challenges, whatever they are.
Then we should know them. I'm curious about around the March 8th message to the public. What's been the progress toward my request around that?
Where's what March 8th?
The March 8th message about the CBA and that the board felt that it was better suited for 2020 instead of 2019. And I asked that a correction to that be put in all the forums that that message went out to.
Okay, Sherry, could you help me with this?
I sent 2 emails. I don't know if I included Sherry. I sent 2 emails to the whole board. I asked Andy about it at the Saturday meeting as well. I've heard nothing.
Mentioned in the last work session.
Yeah, mentioned it at the last work session, sent an email, mentioned last work session, and mentioned it to Andy.
I think it was to make it clear that we really hadn't voted
Right.
on this, and the implication
Entire
for,
communication, it is quite clear further on in the communication
That's
that
not,
the board had made no decision with respect to whether or not it was going to file this legislation in
okay,
in
that was
2020.
that was never my
You
question.
plucked out the first sentence.
First session is often what people read, and they don't read the rest of it. So
Given the fact that the article read in its entirety is perfectly clear,
my request
there did
was-
not seem to be
my
any
request
reason
was-
to correct that.
Hey,
sentence.
my request was,
Excuse me, no, I was talking and
Sherry,
he started
I
to
have
talk
the,
over
I
me.
have the floor.
Let's, Alan first, then
This
Sherry.
is really.
My
this is
request,
not good.
my request
No,
was,
it's really not good.
my request was that a correction be put in the same media that this was put into. I made that request twice formally, once informally to Andy. So I'm hearing from you that no progress has been
No,
made on
no,
that.
I have not done anything
So
related to
I
that.
would like put in the board requests, I would like a list of all places that that message, all media, or any other form that that message was put out on or around March 8th, and a list of the people to whom it was sent, so that a correction can be made. I don't know who, is that something you keep, the board, who keeps the board request log?
It's gotta stop. It happens to public.
Susan, is that something you keep, or,
I can, I'll
thank you.
Any other questions for Milton?
Yes, sorry.
Rick?
No, one challenge I did appreciate, and it was truly a challenge, and I'm glad to see it here. It has to do with marketing, and it says on page 5, while our advertising efforts are yielding millions of impressions, I don't know what that means, millions of impressions and generating traffic to our landing pages, traffic is not converting well into leads for our memberships. And there's talking about some of the things the staff is doing to try to improve that. One of the things that's near and dear to my heart is making it as easy as possible for people to get our memberships. You know, and so when I get on our main page, I don't know what we're directing people to or how we're doing. I guess it's in emails or something or in social media. I don't do these things. But anyway, if I do know, if you get on our main page, it looks really good. It's like already a member, you click here. Want to be a member or something like that, you click on this. And when you click on want to be a member, it goes to a place that does not give you the opportunity to establish a membership online. It goes to a place where you put in your information to be contacted by somebody. There's just one thing that stood out to me. I'm not a marketing person, but again, I still think there are, as I've said all along, I still think there are people that want the ability to sign up for a membership online. The way you can sign up online is you've got to go through the drop downs and find memberships and go through a whole lot of things. So it's still there, but it's not through our nice main page where you've got this beautiful presentation. Already a member, do this. Want to be a member, do this. So I'll just ask maybe if staff can look at that to add a link. Like when you say, when you click on the want to be a member thing, that one of the options there is to do the online membership.
We're, as the board know, we're going through some revisions to our website, and one of the things, and you're correct, Greg, one of the revisions we'll be making is that if someone clicks on and goes to that next step where to want to be a member, they can do that, and they will be able to fill out a membership application online. Right now, the way the system is set up, it's not very accommodating. Let's put it that way.
It's not, but I got to tell you, that first page is beautiful. If you, that whole, you want to be a member, man, this looks great. So easy. It's just.
Yes, it is true.
Dick, and then Jimmy.
The business about the Clippers was raised and seems to have just kind of poofed away. Is somebody going to take action on sending out a letter or whatever, some acknowledgement to the Clippers?
Sure, I can send.
I saw a lot of nods of heads, but
I mean, it seemed to be the sense of the board we want to do that. So
I'll send a letter.
You'll do that, good.
And Susan's going to capture that in the.
Thanks for raising it again.
And just one other thing on Alan's question. If we send out an announcement and early on it gives a misstatement of fact, don't tell me that, well, later on, way down at the bottom of the message, we say, oh, ignore that misstatement. I mean, this thing should be corrected. We did not take this position that this particular communique said we did. And people out there are misled. And we don't want to do that anymore.
Ginny.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we could look at how we can communicate to the people that use the pool at the Columbia Gym that it's closed. Now, we got a sign on the door, which you're not going to believe this, but 50% or 80% don't read that sign that's right smack in front of them when they walk through the door. They're hearing it from the other people in a class that it's closed. They're going, what do you mean it's closed? Who's going to tell us? So the issue is, one, it's closing, but the other issue is really how we communicate. One, there are water aerobics classes, for example, going on. What other pools can you use? And especially if you only have a membership in the Columbia Gym. One person said to me, I only have a membership here, I can't go anyplace then. Can you use other pools? Will the classes, the second issue is, will the classes also be moved someplace else? If so, where? Those are two issues. Could we look at how we're going to communicate that?
Yeah, I asked Dan to come up. Dan, would you come up and outline
Nancy,
what
I don't know,
we're
do you
going?
want to add, do you want to say something?
Let's hear what Dan says.
Welcome, Dan.
There are multiple posters within the club on the front desk at various places. It's already been announced in the member newsletter. I mean, the signs additional signs you've seen. I mean, we've already posted it in both physical places and through email to our members. We've made the announcement of that renovation, and we're going to do ongoing renovation with window work as well. So we've already, I mean, it's already been out through multiple channels. And as a matter of fact, normally we don't include Haven, so after Nancy's request, we included Haven, and marketing was a little flustered because they have to go back and change all the marketing we've already done that tells them they can go use the other clubs. So we have to start pulling it back and putting new stuff out. So there's a lot of marketing out about the change already.
Well, okay, this starts April 5th, and
April
when did the
15th.
marketing go out?
April 15th, and it went out last week.
And they can use the other
Yeah.
pools? Okay.
Ginny, you done?
Well, I guess the instructors aren't telling the classes that, for one, and that's your target audience, just in one example, water aerobics classes.
I will speak to
So,
team.
it's if there's stuff in the clubs, the only thing people are seeing, if they even see it, is the one thing on the door, which is a good location that says it's going to close.
poster about this big on the front desk.
It is, that says you can go to other clubs, and that the classes will be moved or
No,
not?
we're not moving the class. When we do short shutdowns like this, we don't move the classes.
Okay.
That's just, we've never done that.
And if you're a single member club,
You can use the other clubs.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I know that, but my concern was communication.
No, like I said, we have to go back and change it to add Haven. That was because we normally don't include Haven in that.
And I'm sorry that you have to, because I love having my own pool. But I do have to say that you might be putting posters up, but for the example, I think the Haven schedule may have changed a little bit, and it is up high. I am now 5'2", and I cannot even see that poster that's up there. and it's not
Okay,
large.
wait, we're talking
I'm
about two
talking
things.
about
We're talking two different
the
things.
schedule at the Haven.
Okay, so we've changed subjects now.
Well, no, I'm not changing subjects. What I'm saying
just
is
wanna be
when you
sure.
think something is posted, it may not be adequately posted.
Okay.
And I think that maybe Laura should be here for these meetings so that, because it's obviously not your job. I mean, I would think that the person who's doing marketing, I don't know who does it, but the posters need to be big and bold and on the doors, because a small an 8.5 by 11 is what's put up high, which, forget it, I can't even move my neck that way. And there should be, I'm sorry, but this is the reality. It's just really a problem for people to get this information. And I don't mean to make your life miserable, but I really believe that we need to do a much better job of communicating
We are
with our
trying.
residents.
I'm sorry, but we're trying. We really are.
Well, somebody told me, is this true and why is it happening? And that's when I contacted you. That shouldn't be how we find out.
The first thing I tell my team when we're doing these things is, let's get with marketing, let's get the communication plan out. Lori was all over it, who's the new general manager at Columbia Gym. We will continue to get better. We really do put a lot of effort in trying to get the message out. Like, it's already been out in multiple channels already. We will just keep getting better.
And will you ask the instructors to please
Yeah, I will speak to
tell
the
their
team.
group, their classes? Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I think Dick was next, and then Alan, and then Dick.
So I guess, Ginny, I'm usually when my kids call for technical support. Today I called my daughter for technical support for a website because I was trying to figure out on Amtrak how to say, yes, this is the train I wanted. And she had to point out to me that there's an add to cart button right over there on the left that I was missing, but it was like right there in front of me that I could have seen. So the fact that people don't read the signs right in front of them doesn't surprise me.
Signs didn't have all the information.
I get, and I hear you got stuff out in multiple ways, and your intention is to do right and to get better, and I believe all that. I guess my ongoing question is, do you have data to show that the marketing that you're doing is working to your expectations? Because I guess what I'm hearing is anecdotal evidence that it's not working that well. And, if that's anecdotal, I'm wondering if you have any data to show that it's. Of course, you can't tell until the
Yeah, I have
until
no.
the
I
thing
can't.
starts.
I can't measure that.
Alan, I will respond to that. That's one of the reasons. Yes, we want to make sure we have marketing dollars. We want to make sure that we can do measurements and metrics to see the return on that investment. And if it's not returning, we will try another approach. That's one reason why we're going more to digital and less to print than we have in the past. So yes, we measure that.
That's and I get that one can measure when it comes to are people signing up and all that. This is more a question of, is the message getting out about where people have to go and where they can't go, and it's, communication is not just me saying it, it's me saying it and make sure that the message has been received.
Well, we can. I mean, just as an anecdotal piece, a woman walked into Athletic Club in the middle of the renovation and asked why the club was closed. And hey, we can. Not everybody reads everything, no matter how much we put it out. So, we don't get everybody because not everybody wants the message. But we get a pretty good majority of people. I wish I could get everybody. It would make everybody's life a lot easier.
Sure. But we emphasize we use multiple channels of outreach because we know everyone doesn't use the same avenues when they want to. We're looking for messages.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Dick?
I was happy to see that people can go to other pools, and I'm glad that you put the Haven on the list. Give me any thought that this might be a nice promotional opportunity, get people into the Haven and maybe sell them a membership or something? Does anybody give that a shot?
We will. Nancy pointed out the fact that she enjoys her pool.
Pool of solitude.
So we get a lot of pushback from the paying members at Haven. It's not a one-sided. When you give something, you're taking something away from someone else, and we try to balance that out and balance all the members' expectations out. And
It's
a lose-lose proposition, but we try to do our best.
It's a nice introductory offer, is what it sounds like to me.
You used to have a class there at 9 o'clock on Sundays last year. When,
Greg and then Shari.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we always can get better communication, but, you know, I've been here a while, and, you know, you think of all the, you know, the thousands of people that we have using our facilities, and yet, if 5 people complain bitterly that they did not get the message, we're left with a misimpression that staff didn't do a good job communicating. You know, I'll be the first to admit that I walk by things all the time and I don't read them. And it's sort of on me. If I go to the athletic club, there's all kinds of things when you're walking through there, but I know what I want to do. I know why I'm there. I'm sort of focused. I walk in there, I go to my locker room, you know, and do my thing. You know, I don't know, I'll just say that I definitely have noticed over time more information being put out in more ways. But it seems to me it's very difficult to avoid those 5 or 15 or whatever people that didn't get the message. Obviously, we want to get the message, but at some point, you know, I don't know. I think it's somewhat unrealistic to say we're going to reach everybody. But obviously, we strive to. But I'll just say I've noticed much more information in many more ways over time. So,
Shari? No, Shari's next.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on something that Alan said, and I think Greg is alluding to, that we push information out, but we have a community that is on information overload all the time. So people are screening out things that are coming to them. One of the things that some organizations are experimenting with now is to have people actually take an action, a click-through of some kind. So rather than deal with things as a headline, you know, newsflash, XYZ, people don't even notice those things anymore. For more information about the great, you know, changes that are going on, you know, will be closed, but click here. Tell people to take an action. And I think what we're seeing with organizations, that closes the feedback loop, number one. And number two, it brings people into relationship. I talk with organizations all the time about client satisfaction, relationship building by getting a response. So there's something that we need to be doing about making sure that people are taking some kind of action. Now, I'm not an expert in this field, but we have great people who are. So this is one of the things I think we really need to be focused on. What action are you asking people to take? And that provides a mechanism to say, were we successful?
Any other questions? Thank you. We're going to move on.
Just could I just take another moment? Just following up on what I said earlier, the shooting was apparently fatal.
Sorry, I was like,
The shooting was apparently fatal outside of the Harper's Choice Village Center.
Outside the
Police
center or the apartments? Or?
It's in the outside. It wasn't at the center. It was across the street from the center. Apartments.
Which apartments?
The old Abbott House?
5400 block of Old Tucker Row, whatever that. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It was the apartment complex next to Cable Hall.
Yeah.
Okay, the report from Inner Harbor was submitted in writing. Any questions? Nick?
I understand that we have a set of rules that are being prepared for people who operate in the park, and that's it'd be helpful if CA put her stamp on it. Is that coming along?
We haven't seen it yet.
You have, but they're being worked on.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's good to hear.
Okay, financial reports. Third quarter financial report and the statements. I know the audit committee looked at them. Audit committee, anything you want to say? Greg, Dick, John.
Greg is not here.
Any questions?
Gentlemen, discuss them at length.
Okay,
Here they are, and they're great.
everyone should have gotten their own individual copy. Okay, dashboard. Milton, anything you wanna?
Dan, who's going to lead that? The dashboard.
Yeah, I can start. So at the last presentation, last quarter, there was discussion about the membership, past due membership receivables, the first metric. And a few board members asked for some different presentation, a little bit of different information. So this time we still provided the original metric that shows the net change in past due membership accounts over 90 days, but we added one for you to take a look at and decide if you want to add this on an ongoing basis or replace the one that we have been providing that shows the balance in those accounts. It's not the net change, it's the actual dollars and numbers of accounts that are over 60, over 90 days, and those that are written off. So that's, we labeled it metric 1A. It's by itself on the page. If you're looking at the sequence of pages, it's after the first 4 charts. And just wanted to point that out and make sure that you saw that and to see if that was what you were looking for and if you had any questions about that.
Would the write-offs only appear once, or would this be an accumulating total of what's been written off over time?
It would be for the quarter.
For the
It would
quarter.
not continue to bill.
So once it's been written off, it's off.
Or through the, as of, I guess through the first 9 months, right? The write-offs is not just a quarterly presentation.
So it will grow quarter by quarter through the year?
Oh, it is each quarter, I'm sorry.
So
So
we-
you were right. It's just for the third quarter. Well, it's showing second and third, so. it's
Second and
compared to-
third. So we wrote off $93,000 worth of debt in quarter 2. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, what I was expecting, I mean, this is useful information. You know, it definitely is. I'm not trying to be condescending. It really is.
Fine.
But what I was expecting was similar to metric 1, a graph over time showing, tracking something over time, so we can see what trends or what the trend is. And I thought it was going to be the over 90 days. We were just going to show what that number was over time. Do we have fewer or more account balances going over 90 days over time?
So you would want to see that as a line graph then? We could do that.
That's what I remember thinking that we were talking about.
Okay.
But it's been a while now. I'm not sure. So I apologize, but I just remember thinking that we were going to track something over time.
Okay.
But
So we didn't go back and pull a lot of data, but what I would like to say is, can we add to it going forward, or do you want us to go back and?
oh no. I mean, just going with the next dashboard. I mean, does that tell us anything, or is this just sure you can look at it? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what what dashboard presentation would tell us something useful as a board, and to me it was. I would find it useful to see what our members are doing with their memberships. Are they, and so the over 90-day mark was telling me that's at the point where our member has pretty much said, I'm out of here, I'm not paying anymore. And so by tracking how many are going into that category of over 90 days, we're sort of getting a sense of what chunk of our members are essentially making that decision that we're done.
Sorry.
I think the other thing that would be useful as far as what we're doing internally to reach people earlier on, before we hit that 90-day point. So, again, I'm not sure how this could be shown. I know I have worked with an algorithm with smaller organizations where we track, there's a percentage that comes up that shows, is there a greater or lesser percentage in this quarter than the previous year? So actually it breaks down monthly. To be able to track it month by month, how many are coming in, how many are going out, what has been done with that, and if you develop that over several years, that's where you get the bigger trends. And I think that's one of the things that I'm concerned about also, that as we are looking at memberships and as we are looking at the relationship of the age of people and what kind of fees that they're paying or what they don't want to pay, we're trying to figure out what they don't want to pay. It's hard to see unless we get that larger picture. So on the one hand, internally, it may help to break it down into smaller chunks that you guys could catch earlier on. And for the board looking for trends, that seems to be a broader stroke. Now, maybe we're asking for two different things. I'm really not sure here. But I think both of those would be useful in terms of what do we need to do about it. I'm concerned about what action can be taken from this. How is this useful? I don't want you just to, create figures and then we don't know what to do with them.
So if
Susan, I mean, you do actually, I mean, right, there is a process that once the people stop paying, there's a process the staff goes through to contact people at different stages, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so.
When does that click in? When we bill them on the 18th of the month and the credit card is denied, for example, that immediately. So Lynn, do you want to come up and maybe walk through that? Do you want to hear that now, or is that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
For 60 days. That's what they do. That's challenging.
So
Hi,
this is,
Lynn.
Hi.
This is Lynn Schwartz, Director of Finance and Treasurer for CA.
We draft our membership accounts on the 18th of the month, and the first 3 days are the critical period after that draft, first 3 work days. Any credit card that's declined or ACH that is returned to us for insufficient funds, a bad bank number, a new account number, gets a phone call. At least we strive to call 100% of them. We don't make contact with 100% of them, but we leave messages. We send emails to those that we're not able to reach. We track every month the percent of the declines of credit cards and the percent of ACH declines, and what we're able to collect in that first 3 days. Because to us, that's critical to try to get the situation resolved sooner rather than later is the most important part of the collection effort. If we're not able to reach them within 3 days, the billing system is reactivated because it's sort of frozen while we're doing that outreach part. We reactivate the billing, and that amount that they have not yet paid goes back onto their account. And an email is sent out from our customer service center informing them that their credit card has been declined or their bank account information may have changed. Could they please either go online and fix the information or give us a call at the service center? So the first letter assumes that this is an oversight and goes out to them before the next billing date comes. On the 18th of the following month, if they still have not paid and they are declined or they bounce again, their account is inactivated, so they do not have admission to the facilities. They're still they're an inactive member. They're not a canceled member at that point. And they receive a letter asking them to please contact the customer service center, that we will not be able to admit them to the facilities until their account balance is taken care of. We give them the instructions to go online and pay or to come through the customer service center or the facility and pay their balance.
Wait a minute, let Lynn finish first.
If they get to the third cycle and it bounces again, that is when they are, excuse me, I misspoke. We actually cancel them 3 days before the next billing cycle if they still have not paid.
This is for the third month.
Yes.
So not, because you said before it was the second month that they were deactivated.
Right, right.
And are they at the second month? The second time?
Yes, inactive.
Okay.
But we move them, we're quick to move them. We only let about 27 days then go by before they are actually canceled. And canceling, go ahead.
Oh, I just have a question. We signed up 100 years ago, so I don't remember the answer. So when I pay on the 18th, is that for the current, what period am I paying for? What days? So do I pay for the 19th to the 18th of the next month? Or I don't even know. You just take my money.
Find out.
We debate about this internally and lose track of it sometimes too, but it's for the first, right? For the coming month. It starts on the first, it's the coming calendar month.
You're basically billing me 12 days in advance.
In advance, and that's
fine.
why we don't inactivate you when you don't.
That's fine. I
pay
just
that.
have forgot.
That first bill cycle is more or less a grace period, if you will, but then once you don't pay and you're in the middle of that first month.
That's fine. Thank you.
So what happens at the third? Okay, at the third month, then you actually cancel. Right?
Then you cancel.
Okay.
And you in order to, there's a couple different things that happen, but you have to sign up again, sort of reinstate your membership at that point if you're canceled. If you have a 12-month contract, if you're on month to month, you also have to reinstate your contract, but today a member can choose either a month to month option or a contract. Now, on a contract option, presumably there is a cancellation fee. The cancellation fee will be put on the account, but is sometimes negotiated if the member comes back, has a reason why they went away. That's all negotiated, but yeah, they're canceled and they have to re-up their membership.
All right, Ginny and then Dick. And somebody else.
I may have misunderstood, but when we were in the audit committee, I thought we were told that if you don't pay, you actually can use the services of the facility for 60 days before they cut you off. And then after 90 days, they terminate. So I think what you're saying is they can use it for 30 days.
Yeah,
That's not what we were told in the audit.
And Jackie actually, I think, was going to clarify that because it used to be that way, and Jackie wasn't familiar with the new timeline, if you will, that we've put in place.
Okay,
So when she came to me for clarification about it, she realized that she might have misspoke about one or two of those
Okay,
things.
so in terms of whether a person can actually continue to use our facilities without paying for 30 days is what you're saying now. You're saying.
That's correct.
Okay.
Dick.
So somebody shows up and their ticket's been canceled. Is there an opportunity for them then to settle up there at the desk, or can they fix it then, or do they have to go through some other procedure?
Yeah, they can, can't they?
They will, the staff.
Dan, remember you need to talk.
The staff will take them to an office and they can contact the member service center.
Oh, okay, good.
And correct it, yes.
Good. Waterboarding. Now, have you
Come with me. No, they call it the backstroke.
Have you had any issues with people getting belligerent when they're told they can't? How do you handle that?
Exactly. I bet.
What do you do?
You deal with it like any other customer service issue. If they're really belligerent, you let them in because no front desk person gets paid enough to get yelled at like that. then it'll either go to the general manager, or if it's bad enough, all the way to me, and then we'll have a conversation. And you might not have a membership depending on how belligerent you are.
Nancy, did you?
No.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. Back to the graph, the 1A. Now it's coming back to me. I think what I was hoping to see was, again, a graph over time showing the dollar amount and the numbers of memberships. Like from what you have here, I can't tell how many members this represents being written off for over 90 days.
It's on that lower line. It says under
that's
number of
beautiful.
accounts.
And I apologize, but
That's
now
okay.
I see it.
Number of accounts, so it's
Okay, that's great. So again, over time, if it could be the dollar amounts, and then maybe just similar to this, just like just have a number that shows how many accounts that represents.
so do it as a line graph, basically. Yeah. Okay. We will try that and see if that meets your expectations.
And just to be clear, accounts doesn't necessarily equal people because they're family memberships.
Right. It's memberships, not members.
All right, any other questions on dashboard metrics? Greg?
Yeah, on page, I don't know what page it is, 'cause I'm in the big long thing, but it's, I guess the page after the new metric we were just talking about, it's the advertising effectiveness report. At the bottom is market share. I just want to say that, when I proposed during the budget that we reduce our rates, or we at least hold our rates steady for memberships, we got a lot of pushback from staff, and I was led to believe during that pushback that we had made a turn, and that memberships were now pointing up. And that was one of the reasons we were put out there, like, hey, we don't, you don't need to do this, it's working. And then to see this, that really just shows the trend, the downward trend is continuing. It's disappointing, and frankly, I feel somewhat misled. I don't know how the rest of the board feels that I feel like the board made a decision based on representations that we didn't need to lower prices. We didn't. In fact, we just need to keep on doing what staff proposed, increasing prices because there was a new trend, and it's just somewhat disappointing that that's there. Again, I know you guys are working hard, obviously, and I know we're selling a whole heck of a lot of memberships.
Greg, what numbers are you looking at that tell you the trend's going the wrong way?
Bottom of this page, Alan.
Here.
If we look at the bottom of that page, membership market share.
Okay.
Columbia resident memberships.
Thank you.
So for the third quarter, and it's particularly troubling because the third quarter ended at the end of January. And so we got that whole resistance to reducing rates in February, where staff ostensibly had access to this data. I don't know what the disconnect was, but the numbers of resident memberships is continuing to go down. The market shares continue to go down. Now, granted, that a big chunk of the market share going down is because a number of additional units came online. You can see that in C. But my hope is that we're going to get a certain share of the new folks that we get here in Columbia. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Okay.
No, Greg, I thank you for acknowledging that the number of units went up also, because it's only a 0.8%. It's 0.8 difference, but notwithstanding that, and Dan can give greater light. Yes, it's something we know that we need to constantly working at. But our marketing staff are doing exceptional work. What they did, just thinking about last weekend with the open house, the new memberships they brought into that. Those are opportunities. The increasing the memberships. It's not something new to us, but the numbers are new to us. And so, yes, we understand there's always room for improvement, but we definitely have to give them credit for the work they have done and what they're producing.
Dan, and then
If you could, if in the quarterly report, if you could go to page 150, please. So if you look at the total number of memberships from quarter two, 19,564. At the end of quarter three, it's 19,567. And you look at the previous quarters, there were significant drops. That's what, when we were discussing the increase in membership, I was not breaking down resident, non-resident, I was breaking down memberships. We have had a substantial increase, in a substantial change. December, January, and February of FY18, we lost 164 members. 134. Too many numbers here. The same time period, December, January, February of this year, we gained 135 members. So I did not tell you something that was not true. I told you accurate information.
I know. I just feel, again, I still feel misled. If I had had a graph that time that showed, again, my focus was on reducing rates for residents. You said, hey, we've increased memberships. And those are both, that's an accurate statement. But again, I feel misled because we were talking about reducing resident membership rates, and resident membership rates have truly continued to decline. And maybe I didn't ask, cross-examine you and say, well, hold on, when you say memberships, are you doing this? But I didn't think I had to do that. And I just think that, again, seeing this, I was somewhat taken aback. I had to sort of blink and say, is this really there after what we were told on February 14th?
And I'll also point out it's a 15 membership difference when you look at the various, we're talking residents now, to the various other quarters, it's much more significant.
Susan has something to respond to that, and then Alan.
We did not have we just got the additional residential units confirmed literally, we were on Thursday, so that is new information for us. But the other thing that happened that is really hard to see in here, I'm sorry, is all of the cancellations that we did in the second and third quarter because we changed we stopped billing and took people off the list, of the register, if you will, who were not paying, rather than to continue to gross up the balance sheet and the receivables and the reserves. So that on page 150, you see those numbers there. It's significantly larger than previous quarters because of that effort. And I don't have the totals, but I can get them. And you might, Lynn, I don't want to put you on the spot, Lynn, but you could maybe talk about the reason that changed so much in Q2, Q3.
It's the same reason really that we haven't gone back with the over 90 presentation, and because we did recently make some significant changes to the whole billing and collection cycle, and all of that was about started about a year ago now, but really didn't become fully implemented until about 6 months ago. And so the write-offs in the beginning of the year, of this fiscal year, were significant because we had been carrying receivables much longer. There had been a reluctance. We did not stop billing. Even canceled memberships, we would continue to bill till the end of the contract period, which was simply putting receivables on the books that we had to reserve for. So we changed our cycle significantly, and there were memberships in the counts from last year, prior quarters and last year, that were not paying. And now we are truly reporting memberships that are active or inactive status. They can be inactive, but they're only inactive for 30 days, and then they're either paid or they become canceled at 60. So they're not, you got to pick one. You're one or the other. You're not going to be in limbo for very long anymore. And so the number is more representative of truly active paying members.
So looking at the top part of that page that Greg pointed us to earlier, it's page 34 of the packet, the Advertising Effectiveness Report. If I'm reading these numbers correctly, that actually looks like mostly good news to me. I mean, if you look at quarter over quarter, first quarter of each year was not good. Comparing first quarter of last year to first quarter of this year, but the other quarters, things do seem to be picking up in terms of acquiring more new memberships. each quarter. Am I reading those numbers correctly? So that looks like good news to me. I'm very much appreciating that there's a specific goal. I know there's a range, but I like the goal, $150 to $250 cost to acquire each new member. I have no base. I leave it to you all to decide whether that's a good goal to have or not. I guess what I'm wondering is, at the bottom part of that chart, I don't know what 100%, 90%, 80%. What do those percentages mean? And did you meet your goal?
Well, I can try to, this is the marketing department's report, but I certainly play a hand in it, so I will try to describe what this is saying. If you look at footnote 4, which I understand is very tiny, but that's sort of explaining the various percentages.
Oh, okay.
The cost of new membership acquisition is presented at various percentage rates to analyze effectiveness, assuming 100% of new memberships were driven by advertising tactics,
Got it. Thank you.
90%, etc.
So was the impression that you all met your goal of $150 to $250?
Yes, because it falls within that range. That's why you're given a range. Typically, you will have a specific target, and as Laura continues to work with her team and we get better being able to assign, and digital's much better about being able to assign a new member to a specific tactic, then we'll be able to narrow that down rather than having to do a range.
Okay, thank you.
Renee and then Shari. Did you have a question? No. Okay, Shari.
Okay. I do understand that the marketing cost, that is an internal cost, that is an internal staff, the effort of the organization to bring in new memberships. I think what Greg has been talking about all along is I don't see a goal for memberships to maintain memberships among our residents. This is a dollar amount that says how much effort are we making and where are we making the effort. The goal, for example, you say organizations will say, we want to increase our membership among new Columbia residents by 10%. What would that look like? What would those numbers be? And then the cost of attaining that goal would be meaningful in terms of, have we brought in new people? Are we keeping new people? What is the cost of keeping those new people? Are we increasing our membership among our residents? You see what I'm saying? That's a different kind of question. And as I'm concerned that as these new residents are coming in, we want to be able to reach as many of them, bring them in, and have them be as committed and reliable to CA as our communities have been in the past. That would be a real goal for me.
So we have monthly sales goals, and that's part of the quarterly membership report that I do, how we did with our sales. So we do have monthly sales goals that we track and we track against. Right now, our sales goal is 406 sales. As of this afternoon, we were at 350. We did 369 last year. We have 14 more fit and plays this year than we did last year. We have 26 more OneFit memberships than last year. So we track all that information. It's just how much do you want? That there's information overload. I mean, we have goals and metrics for all of this. We don't break it down though. 406 members. I need 300 Columbia residents. It's hard to do that, especially Columbia Gym. Almost 50% of the usage is non-residents. It's like 46%. So it's a balance of communicating to the entire community and getting all people in, but the bulk of it goes to Columbia residents, the bulk of the messaging.
Actually,
All right.
I have one question.
All right, Dick.
On Clara Bridge, are you getting pretty regular samples? I mean, people continuing to fill out the forms? Are you happy with the way you're getting participation?
We get good participation, but I want more. And we're working on continuing to improve that. We've been working with Clara Bridge. We're going to change the subject line. We're going to send out reminders to get more people to fill it out. We do want a bigger response. We get about 10% return, which on a relationship survey, according to Clara Bridge, is pretty good. But we started out, when we first started doing it, we were getting like 13. So I would like to get a couple more percent back. So it's okay, but we want more.
Janet?
I was just curious if you'd ever tried anything like monthly drawings for things or anything like that to encourage people. You know, if you fill out the survey, you get it submitted to a drawing.
You know, we didn't even have to do drawings. Columbia Gym has notoriously, of the 3 fitness facilities, the lowest response rate. The new general manager would not accept that. And so when the survey went out, we did the email, it came back with its traditional response, which is around 125, 140 responses. She would not accept it. And now they're sitting at over 350 because the staff was just, hey, did you get the survey? Did you fill it out? And they've been working. So it's about getting more of the staff to engage. We don't even have to give something away. It's about getting the engagement and reminding people it's there.
What I have noticed, Dan, recently is when I attend a class, the instructors are reminding people about the importance of filling out the survey and comments and saying, and it's really, you just go right here. And I've also noticed that it's just in Supreme, I noticed that the survey form is up on the computer as like the default, which I think was another good idea. But so it is interesting. I mean, because the first time that they heard the instructors kind of tell people that, oh, you really need to make comments, and here's how you can make comments, and here's a way to survey. But that's it. Greg.
Are those Clara Bridge, what Andy's talking about, or is that something like personal?
No,
to
it's
the instructor?
Clara Bridge. We have what we call, it's called a kiosk version, but it's a web page. And you can go to any of our landing pages for any of the facilities, and it says take our survey, and it takes you into the survey. Now, what I don't get for that is I don't get the demographic data. Like if you read through the notes that I made, not only do we get the individual facilities, now I have age, we've just added gender, I have membership type, I have resident, non-resident, so we can begin looking at different buckets. If they fill out the web survey, I don't get that information. But I take any information.
Yeah. What I was going to ask, though, is Russ brought this up. He feels somewhat inundated with emails, apparently. On average, do you know how many emails people, like if someone gives their email, how many emails they're getting from CA an average week?
Well, he said marketing, so I don't know that he meant emails, because we are very controlled about the emails. There is a very specific, but we have, especially digitally, as part of the marketing effort, you will see us online more. So you will see CA more. If you visit our website, you'll now kind of one of those follow ads where you'll go to another site and then the ad you'll see will be about CA. So we do have a greater presence, and that's one of the things Laura's brought is a greater presence, because as we've all been talking about, we need awareness. There's so much competition out there nowadays. We can't just take for granted people are going to come to us. I don't want to go too far off, but okay.
Milton.
No, I was just going to respond to Greg. One of the things we're doing is we're doing more geo-targeting marketing. For example, use myself as a person. I go at home, I'm on ESPN's website. I will see a CA ad, a digital ad on the side. And every time I go there, there's generally one there, whether it's Haven, one of our fitness clubs, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, no, that makes great sense. And it's not overly annoying.
No,
It's
you
not-
just
not-
click
not to
on
me.
it, you can get rid of it.
What I was worried about is, are people potentially getting annoyed at some kind of number of emails that we're pumping in
No,
there?
we're very careful about that because the last thing we want is people to unsubscribe.
Right.
So that's the one thing we protect.
Okay, Dick's the last one, and we're gonna have to move on.
I just have to say, I had spoken to Russ before the meeting. He had complained about that, and I told him how much pressure we were putting on you guys to increase membership. And I thought I convinced him that there was a reason for that. I'm sorry if I didn't score.
Everybody has their opinion.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna move on now. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Board action consent agenda, minutes approved. Board votes the 4 easement requests. Give Al and Dennis a moment to come up here. Okay, Neighborhood Square, Town Center. Is there a motion to approve that easement? That's the
Can I
one for the
actually
pipe.
make
Sure.
a general statement? One of the things, we had one person come in, but I just think in
Yes.
general, any of our easements that potentially impact residents, I don't know if there's something that we can put in our easement agreement. I know the county is supposed to notify them, but they don't, at least in my experience and in my personal experience and anecdotally, but is there something that we can put in there that requires them to notify residents and then let us know when they've notified residents to reinforce it? Because that's my main concern with a lot of these, is that if there's something happening or clear cutting or anything like that that could potentially impact the residents that are nearby, it's important that they know that before it happens.
We could add a term, yes.
Okay, is there a motion? Dick is moving that we approve the Neighborhood Square. Is there a second? Lynn seconded. Any discussion? Greg?
I can't remember where we ended last time. As far as some type of provision that's so that we're not going to be limiting our use of that little strip in the future. Is there something we can put in the easement, the agreement, so that if 10 years from now we want to do something there, that we're able to do it without interfering with whatever easement we're granting Howard Hughes? You know what I'm talking about? I mean, just if we want to
remember the microphone.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we just got the easement in from HRD's legal. We could add that. I'll talk to Sherry about adding that as a comment on their easement.
Right, just something, so again, if we want to put a post in the ground, or we want to put, run a electric line, I don't know, I'm just trying to think that there's something there. I just don't want to have it where all of a sudden there's this little spot where we can't do something because we have to go slightly underground, and they say, well, we can't do that. So that's my only concern.
Yep, we can do that.
Alan?
A couple of questions. When we give someone an easement like this, does that mean, following up on Greg's question, that is it that we've simply said, we will make sure you have the ability to do what you said you want to do, or does it mean we've said we aren't going to do anything with that property? Because you have the easement.
It depends on the easement. I mean, it depends on what it's for.
Well,
If it's
let's
for
look
this
at
one,
this one specifically.
For this one specifically, no, we would have the ability to do something else on there.
Okay. Second question, and I appreciate you've both been very positive in your responses to a couple of board members' questions. I guess I just need to be reassured that when we hear we could do that, or we can do that.
We
does that
will.
mean you will do that?
We will.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no further questions. All those in favor of approving that easement? Unanimous. Okay, the next one is Mellon Court. This is a stream restoration. Is there a motion to approve that easement? Dick moved. Is there a second? Ginny seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next one is Little Patuxent Parkway Corporate Center Drive, Little Patuxent Parkway. That's for this new signal stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to approve that easement?
I move we approve the easement.
Greg, is there a second? Lynn seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
That adds another light.
No, it's the same
No.
light.
It's just,
It's the same
it
light.
just realigns it.
It just
Oh, it just
realigns it.
realigns it. Oh, okay, then I'm in favor.
I'll be with you.
Get it in the right place.
And by the way,
Another light?
they've already actually moved some of the poles
hours
already.
now.
Yeah,
So that's fine.
yeah, they have, because they're gonna put crosswalks in. All right, that was unanimous then.
I'm a little concerned we're making this too easy on the two of them. Is this?
All right. Last one is the multi-use pathway Village of Wild Lake. Is there a motion to approve that one? Dick, is there a second?
Second.
Greg? Oh, sorry. Well, let Nan.
You let me because it's my
Your
village.
village, right.
It's your village.
Well, let her make the motion.
I made the motion
All right.
and Dick seconded.
And Dick seconded. Nancy made the motion, Dick seconded.
Courtesy.
When you run for office next time, made
All right.
motion.
All right, any discussion?
He's gonna go out there and build it.
All
too.
those in
Yeah,
favor?
little discussion,
Wait.
Oh, sorry, okay, yeah.
Sherry, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I was just going to ask you whether there was any further discussion in your village. There were some people who came and brought up points about the bike riders and the
south
walkers
side
and
and
all
the
that.
north side.
Right. Was there any further discussion in your village about that?
There had been some discussion prior to this meeting here. And basically, the bottom line is the people who are putting in it and are paying for it said they're doing it on the north side. And as Greg Fitch had said that night, it was the county that made the determination that it's the north side and that it's not Howard Hughes that is paying for this that made that determination. So between the county and Howard Hughes, yeah, it's fine.
Alan?
Did your village board weigh in on this?
Did who?
Your village board weigh in
The
on this?
village board primarily did. There was a certain member of the village board, you know, who's on the planning board, so that's a bit of a conflict.
But they were generally in favor of
The
this?
rest of the board was in favor.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
No, that's
Okay, all those in favor of granting this easement? Unanimous. All right, thank you. Revised Audit Committee Charter.
Are we, what's the story of the upcoming easement requests? Take action?
They're coming up.
We'll see if they come in April.
That's just to notify us.
That's just to notify, those are potential. There's potential easements coming, but we don't have.
We don't have a time frame of all of them.
Okay,
Right.
fine. I didn't want to overlook anything.
Yep. Revised Audit Committee Charter. Let me ask the Audit Committee if they have anything they want to say. Greg, Dick, Jenny? Nope. Shari?
I was just going to ask about the background to this change. If you could just give us some idea about why it was being asked for.
Which, if I may,
Audit Committee.
if I say, if I may,
Sure. Yeah.
which change?
The
red line.
yeah, the red line.
Well, the authority part is just something from, I got some notes from Jackie. That was put in there because it's best practice from the internal Institute of Internal Auditors to have an authority provision in your charter.
Dick?
This gives Jackie more latitude to request or demand documents, or it gives the audit committee. It makes it very clear that if the audit committee needs stuff, or Jackie needs stuff, we can get it, and if there's a legal objection from anybody, it would be addressed by the board to decide whether the audit committee can get this information. So it actually improves the board's oversight.
Well, in addition, it's not just document. You see the first one, it says communicate with management also.
Okay, so there's the second paragraph. So the general counsel may determine. So I was just wondering why that language was in there. It seems to me that the next line, if necessary, the committee will meet with the general counsel. The locus then goes to the committee rather than the general counsel coming first. In other words, I don't know, there are lots of other charters. why would that even be necessary to say?
This, Greg, you want to address that?
The general counsel paragraph?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll admit, Jackie said it's typical, I guess, is why I went along with it. I wasn't entirely comfortable with it, but if this is the way audit committees operate, here's my concern with that paragraph. Let's say the audit committee says we want to have documents X, Y, and Z. General counsel says, okay, Y and Z, we're not giving you, audit committee, because in my opinion, this poses a significant business risk if we put this in front of your eyes. Then we have to have this back and forth between the committee and general counsel. The audit committee only meets 4 times a year. Okay. I would hope, and it doesn't say it in here, because my concern is that this back and forth really means that by the time it's resolved, the audit committee is, it's 6 months later, it's 9 months later. It would be nice if there was some kind of comfort knowing that it would be sort of resolved somewhat expeditiously. But that was my main concern.
And also a link to that is that the provision is that if the audit committee requests some information and there's a ruling of the general counsel that this information is confidential or under whatever, then the deciding factor, that matter becomes before the full CA board.
Right, and I understand that, and that's what it says in the last sentence. And so it seems to me the significant systemic, the process here is really that last sentence.
Right.
If the general counsel and audit committee, so I don't think we need any of the rest of that, because for exactly the reason that Greg is talking about, you're building in extra steps that don't need to be there. If the audit committee members are asking for something and the general counsel says, no, we really can't do that, it should immediately come to the board. It doesn't need to go back and forth through all kinds of business. It should just come to the board. So I would just get rid of the rest of the language and go directly to, if the general counsel and audit committee are unable to reach an agreement about disclosure of requested information, the audit committee will bring the matter to the Columbia Association Board of Directors for resolution. I think that's all it needs to say.
To the council.
Janet?
I'd like definition of what resolution means, though, because if resolution is we come here and Sherry says, no, you can't have it anyway, then that's not, I'm just not clear on, is the idea here that the board votes to release the documentation?
Yep. That's the final step.
Yes, it's my understanding
sure that that's what
yes,
you
that's the board is the final arbiter, for lack of better
You could
phrase.
say resolved by vote. But that would take care of it.
Okay, wait a minute. Wait, Dick was next, and then Ginny and Alan.
Well, sure, I like the way you condensed that. The reason I like this is we've had occasions where information's been withheld from the board arbitrarily, and the board has not been able to get that information. And I saw this as an opportunity to make sure the board gets that opportunity. And if we can shorten the process, and as Greg points out, we don't want to have a back and forth for months.
Keep in mind that this information is not about the board, it's about the audit committee getting information.
But, okay, if the audit committee, if there's any disagreement, it should go to the board, and the board should be.
So are you agreeing with that last sentence
I
as
am
being
agreeing.
the key? Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying.
Okay.
I'm agreeing.
I guess
Alan and then Ginny.
I'd be fine. I mean, I don't know enough about the audit committee to know if it would be possible for them to decide to handle it on their own, or if they had avenues to handle it on their own, but with the general counsel. And if they wanted to take that route, I don't want to proscribe that route for them. And so I'm not sure which language would, I don't want to dictate, I'm with you, Chair, I don't want to dictate, this is how you have to do it, go through these 5 steps, however many there are before you can come to the board. But I don't want to proscribe their ability to work it on their own. That's number one. Number two, sort of similar to Dick's point, we have been told as a board in the past that there's information that the general counsel isn't going to give us. And so I'm unclear how this relates to that. If there was, so there's two questions in there. Obviously I'm not asking for actual information, but what kind of information would you anticipate would be considered so highly confidential that the audit committee, who I'm assuming are sworn to the same secrecy that we're sworn to in closed meetings, that they couldn't see it? What kinds of information might that be, number one? And secondly, is there any information that the general counsel would still insist the board couldn't see in order to create the resolution?
Well, I was going to try to address the first part of it. The general counsel does not attend audit committee meetings, and so the reason for the first part of it, Shari, was that if there was a decision made by general counsel related to a requested information by the audit committee, and the general counsel says no, then there's the general counsel would have an opportunity to appear before the audit committee to explain why that reason was given. That's why that step is in there, for the explanation.
And my other two questions?
The other two questions related.
What kind of information is potentially contemplated that would be so highly classified that the
Sherry,
audit committee
would you help
couldn't
me
see
with
it?
that?
First of all, you need to know that this provision was not added by me. It was added by Jackie Tuma. And it was added by Jackie Tuma because, according to her, in her meetings and conferences with other internal auditors and best practices that she has learned at various audit seminars and conferences, it was her belief that this language was necessary. So if you believe that this language needs to be revised, I suggest that the board suggest whatever revisions it wants, and then those will need to go back to Jackie, and Jackie can review them.
And the answer to my question is?
I don't have an answer to your question. I did not draft this.
So you can't think of anything in this point? Okay.
I'm not going to, off the cuff, try to come up with an example.
Okay, thank you.
Alan, I could actually see some things. If we wanted employee records that had personal information.
We being the audit committee?
The audit committee wanted to see some type of employee information, employee records, where there was extraneous personal information that an employee has to fill out. That's not at all relevant to what the audit committee is even looking at. I could easily see the general counsel's matter, in that saying, you know what, this part of it, this part of it is not relevant and it's very personal. And I'm not going to.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, it's off the cuff as well, but I could at least see. I would at least could understand that.
Ginny.
Yeah, I think Milton really covered this, but I think the idea was that if the audit committee wanted something, and it may have been a close vote, and it went to general counsel, I wouldn't want it coming to the board right away. I would want the general counsel to go to the audit committee, explain why it's not a good idea to get that information. And the audit committee then may decide, oh, forget about it. Or we're going to pursue it and go to the CA board. They have that option. But that way they may change their mind, especially if it was a very close vote to begin with as to why they asked for that opinion. So if you eliminate that step, then we're going to be hearing stuff that we maybe don't have to be involved in at all.
By the way, this has never happened. All my time in the audit committee.
I was just going to say, I have never seen this come up, which is why it seemed to me that making it as clean as possible and not building in extra process, extra unnecessary process. All this is saying in the case that there is a disagreement about what information about disclosure, then ultimately it comes to the board.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
If the audit committee still wants to pursue it.
Yeah.
So it's.
Yeah.
It's
But
okay.
I think that's built in. I mean, I assume that where personnel matters are concerned, we already have guidelines. So the general counsel would be involved anyway.
Okay.
Don't need that step.
Well.
So, okay. Audit committee sent the recommended changes to the board. first, is there a motion to approve the revised audit committee charter?
Is that just open-ended to, is there, or are
we-
we talking about this particular change?
The whole thing.
No, it's revised.
Revised charter. First, a motion
I
to,
move that we do
all right. And is there a second? Lynn, okay, now, are there any amendments anybody wants to make?
There you go. All right, I would like to offer an amendment that the second paragraph, the first two sentences, let me make sure it's the first two sentences. No, it's the first three sentences, that those be omitted, and it goes to directly, if the general counsel and audit committee, that sentence. Just not.
All you want to do, just keep the last sentence.
Yes,
That's
keep
all
the
you
last
want.
sentence, thank you.
Eliminate the rest of it.
Right.
All right, so Sherry's making that.
Well,
Is there a
this is
second?
in the second paragraph.
That's right.
After the bullets.
Right,
Yes.
right there. Or we just
Sorry.
keep the last sentence.
Are we
That
eliminating
third
the
paragraph.
second and third sentences of that paragraph, but leaving the first sentence? Because otherwise that, it doesn't make sense. You just have the last sentence of that second paragraph, it doesn't make sense.
It goes from below the bullets, that next paragraph is intact, and then it goes directly to if the general counsel and audit committee.
Well, but that, what Sherry is saying is, without the
That
first
sentence
sentence that
doesn't make
talks
sense.
about the general counsel may determine that certain highly confidential information should not be disclosed, then there's nothing to resolve.
Right.
If I may, Shari, what was trying to be accomplished here is that, okay, if the situation arose where the audit committee requested information, and then after consulting with general counsel, the general counsel said this particular piece of information cannot be given to you, the audit committee wanted to have an opportunity to hear from the general counsel. And also part of that discussion, and Greg and Jenny, if there's an opportunity with the general counsel sitting in front of the audit committee, they may say you cannot provide you the documents, but they can say, okay, this is the situation we have. What can you share with us, or how can you help us with this situation? It's an opportunity for the general counsel to sit before the audit committee where they're trying to resolve a matter or deal with a matter or get information and help them if you can. That's the whole part of this.
Milton, I completely understand what you're saying. So you now repeated several times what I understood from the very beginning. The point that I'm trying to make here is that this is built into the system already. And the only thing that we really need to do here is to specify in the case where there is not agreement, then it will ultimately bring the matter before the board. It's never been an issue, so I don't think it needs to be more complicated. I think we do best when we design policies, charters, procedures, things of that kind that are simple and understandable. So I think it's going to accomplish the very same thing, but be a lot simpler if we just cut out the other language.
Okay, let's, so what exactly is your amendment? I just want to make sure we're clear.
Take out the sentence, right? There's just one sentence.
Shari seems to want to drop everything except for the very last
Except for the very last sentence.
So in that paragraph, we're dropping everything. That's your amendment?
Yes.
And Nancy seconded it, I think. Yes, so Sherry and Nancy made that. Okay, Greg, and then Jen.
All right, the only reason, I agree with your intent, Shari. Honestly, I'm okay with those sentences. I'll tell you why. The first sentence actually gives the general counsel a standard that he or she has to meet in order to not disclose it to the audit committee. First, it has to be highly confidential, and it has to create a significant business risk. If you don't at least have some kind of standard, then the general counsel can pretty much do what he or she wants, and then just I mean, obviously that wouldn't happen, but at least there's some kind of standard in there. So I like that, and I do see some value of trying to, I hate to call it negotiate, but at least somewhat negotiate with the committee and say, do you really need this, or do you really just need these kind of things? There is value to that. What I think we might be able to do, because I am worried about speed, I'm worried about the speed it takes to get to the board. If we could say in that last sentence that the audit committee will bring the matter to the Columbia Association Board of Directors for resolution at the next regularly scheduled board meeting.
That sounds good.
And maybe that would give me some comfort that, okay, it's going to be decided quickly. Could we maybe agree on that?
Whoa, wait a minute. It's not going to go to the regular meeting. It's going to have to go to a closed meeting.
Of course, we go into closed session, of course, but I mean, it would be a time after which we would go into closed session, it would be decided at that next date.
That's reasonable.
Does that give the audit committee enough time to have a conversation if they need to?
Well, the conversation would be before that point. So we have all the conversation. General counsel makes the pitch. If you can't agree, then boom, next meeting.
Okay, so it's not next meeting after the disagreement, it's next meeting after a conversation.
Right.
And I think I can clarify this by saying next meeting date. So we can tack a closed meeting onto that.
Right.
Just a second. Wait a minute. Janet, good.
So I had two things. That wasn't one of them, but I like that idea. But your original concern was the speed at which that decision was made. So I think that maybe there also needs to be language that a special audit committee meeting would be called so that it doesn't take an entire quarter before they have that conversation again.
Yeah.
So that would be my concern. And the only other thing I was going to say is that by changing this, we actually delay it being ratified for a whole quarter because it'll have to go back to the audit committee, I assume.
No.
No?
No. I think it should go back to Jackie. I think I do like Sherry's idea that if we do propose a change tonight, to at least let Jackie look at it and say whether this is consistent with her understanding of the way audit committees work. But I don't think it needs to go back to the audit committee. I don't know if people disagree with me.
Well, the audit committee is made up primarily of board members.
Well, it is a
It's
recommendation.
Three.
Point of
Three of the
information.
board members.
Who has the authority? Obviously, we could put it in the rules, but who has the authority right now to call a meeting of the audit committee?
The chair of the audit
Chair
committee.
of the audit committee.
So they could do that. The chair of the audit committee could call a special meeting
Call a special meeting anytime.
in any case. We don't have to tell them to do that. If they feel like it's timely, time is of the essence, they could call their own special meeting.
Very good point.
Right. They could, yeah, they call meetings when they,
When they darn well please, is what you're trying to say.
wait, were you finished, Jen?
Yeah, I'm finished, thank you.
Jenny.
Since Jackie isn't here, do we want to extend some courtesy to her with the potential rewording of this and get her feedback before we vote? Or do we feel it's not that significant change? This is her proposal, really.
Question.
Wait, Greg's next.
I think if we did what Sherry is proposing, I think it should go back to Jackie. If all we ended up doing was tacking on to the last sentence at the next, on the date of the next regularly scheduled meeting or whatever you modified it to, Dick. I mean, that's just a timing issue. I don't have to go back to Jackie.
Dick.
So we're making more changes than that, okay.
As I understand it, if we put in Sherry's language, we probably owe it to Jackie to
Yeah, I would
see
be
this.
happy with that.
On the other hand, if we just add at the next meeting, board meeting date, I
Wouldn't be a
think we
problem
could
at
vote
all.
on it right now.
No, that wouldn't be a problem, you're right.
So would.
It's just which one we're doing is where I was.
So would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I'm amenable as far as the amendment to add that additional language to the last sentence.
But you still want to keep your amendment.
I would
Right,
keep
she
the
wants to
original.
keep her
Yeah.
original amendment. All right. So do you want to add that? Nancy, you agree to that? Add that language. which is.
We'll bring the matter to the Columbia Association Board of Directors for, did we say resolution by vote at the next?
Well, it has to be by vote. That's the only way the
Yeah,
board
all
can.
right, so resolution, well, but Janet brought that up for resolution at the next
Board meeting date,
board meeting.
board meeting date.
By the next.
Because we wouldn't do it at the meeting. We-
All right, the next scheduled board
I mean,
meeting.
at the next, next
Okay.
scheduled board meeting.
And is this in lieu of taking out those sentences, or we still?
She still wants to take out the sentence.
Well, oh, yeah, okay.
All right, and Nancy accepted that, friendly.
Fine with me.
All right, so if there's no more discussion, I'd like to call the question on the amendment, which is take out the sentences and add that extra wording.
It's taking out everything from, in the second paragraph, from the general counsel down to if the general counsel?
Yeah.
That's her amendment. All right, all those in favor of that amendment? Okay, let's see. Oh, great. Let's get Renee, Shari, Nancy, Dick.
Yeah, I'm gonna, if we're leaving that, if we're taking that sentence out, I'm gonna.
All right, and Andy, they were in favor. Okay, let me write this down.
You'll need to repeat that, Andy. About
If we're taking the sentence out,
Right.
I,
Voting yes or no? What's the?
I'm saying, I thought, I was gonna say yes, I'm saying no, because if we take the sentence out,
So the
we're gonna
four,
delay this.
the 4 yes votes I have are Renee, Sherry, Nancy, Andy. Correct? Okay, opposed. Greg, Dick, Janet, Lynn, Ginny. So it's 6.
And I'm chopped liver?
Alan. Sorry, all 6. I saw.
I noticed that.
So I'll say it. It's Janet, Alan, Ginny, Lynn, Greg, and Dick.
Fails.
Okay, so the motion fails.
I move that we attach the following language to the last sentence of the same paragraph, beginning with the general counsel. And the language is on the date of the next regularly scheduled board meeting.
I thought Sherry could maybe do that. Oh, never mind.
It's not her village.
Whatever you want to do, just count me in.
Let him have it.
Greg, can you repeat that for Valerie to make sure?
On, adding to the end of the paragraph, on the date of the next regularly scheduled board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Who's trying to get Sherry?
Okay, Greg made that motion, and
Janet seconded.
Janet seconded.
Dick second.
Oh, call
We
for the
both seconded
question,
it,
call for the
Put Dick
vote,
on,
let's
please.
go. Call for
That's
the
why I
vote.
don't second anything.
It's too much chair.
Dick seconded it. All right.
Seconded it.
All those in favor of that amendment?
That's fine, too.
Janet, Alan, Renee, Ginny, Lynn, Greg, Dick, Andy. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Sherry and Nancy. Okay, so that passes. All right.
I move we approve the
What's
revised.
we already have a motion to do that.
Yeah.
We just did amendments. All right, so back to the original motion, which now has that amended sentence. All those in favor of the revised audit committee charter? Unanimous. Thank you. Wow.
Pull that kid out of that
That's just where you're in the big bucks.
Yeah,
Good
right.
elephant.
No, leave him alone, let him stay in there, he's safe.
All right.
No, but then you gotta carry him around.
So then we're on to
Will somebody notify Jackie what we did?
I will take care of it.
all right, the ethics policy change. We just really need to make a decision, one way or the other.
Just vote on it. Where is it?
Okay, so basically the proposal is to add that section simultaneously serving the board of directors to run for election public office to our ethics policy. Chart.
Okay, so we have been examining this kind of thing. This is not the first time this has come up. This has come up in previous years. the board has had this position, and then it was changed, and now it's being proposed to go back, and there is no agreement on what the bylaws say about removal of board members. And I would like to suggest that we get a legal opinion so that we can resolve this once and for all.
Second.
Yeah, no, I think that's.
I concur.
Outside counsel.
Yes, from outside counsel. That's what.
Yeah, no, I think that's,
Let's clean it up.
that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
because quite honestly, I think our board heard something entirely different from what you heard or your board heard.
So, I mean, I think that's.
I'd love to do that.
It's a good idea to at least get that issue resolved, okay? Well, what I want to point out is what we've been talking about here is a change to the ethics policy. Okay, it doesn't mean an automatic removal of the board member. What it means is it would then be an ethics violation, which would then have to be handled through our ethics process, right? Because that's what happens, you know, when you have a violation of any of these, and then it's going to end up before the board for a decision, because that's how our ethics violations for board members end up. So I just want to make sure that you don't understand that this isn't just an automatic, you know, they're out, okay? But I think it's really good to kind of get that other question cleared up.
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Alan?
The next question, though, is then who and how do we select this outside counsel? I mean, it clearly shouldn't be me because I have an opinion. It clearly shouldn't be Sherry because she has an opinion. So we
have
how do
law-
we find a
So-
truly impartial?
But we do have law firms on.
Retainer.
Yeah, but they work.
What's the word?
Retainer.
Retainer.
But they tend to work with Sherry, so that's already a relationship.
Why don't we just see
That doesn't
what they
make them-
give us and see if it makes sense for, you know, you don't have to be a lawyer to read our bylaws and our charter.
Why are we asking?
It's actually well caffeinated.
At the Mad City Cafe. Why don't we give them a shot? If we don't like what we're getting or we can't agree on it, then we spend money on somebody else.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because
okay.
if we go ahead and do that,
Yeah.
depending upon whose ox gets gored, it then others will say, well, we just paid for this outside counsel that was to resolve this question. And so I think it behooves us to figure out a way to find the most neutral, non-biased outside legal and knowledgeable outside legal counsel we can find.
Sure.
First, can someone please clarify for me exactly what the question is for which you were asking for a legal opinion? Because it's really not clear to me.
Yeah.
What are you asking for a legal opinion about?
I think from my point of view, I am unclear as to who has the authority to remove somebody from this body. I think there were some people here that really thought that could only be done by their local village board. I believe, and I could be mistaken, that our board heard that wasn't sufficient. It had to be this board. So I would just like to know who's on first, who can do it. And now, for what reasons, that's different, because that I'm sure will come to play.
Dick and Nancy?
I've heard a number of what sound like reasonable legal opinions that have to do with whether this is in our documents, whether it's the bylaws or the anyway. And it seems there is a conflict there. I think reasonable people disagree. And it seems to me that it would make sense if somebody who has had some experience working with our founding documents can look through this thing and decipher this. It seems there is some ambiguity here.
Nancy?
I would like to suggest what was originally suggested is to have outside counsel that we already have on retainer. I don't have any conspiracy theories. I'm comfortable with having a regular outside attorney because people would prefer that apparently to Sherry. And if that makes some people happy, that's fine, but I don't think we have to go looking for a number of different attorneys to do this. I don't think it's that difficult a question. I think it could be resolved reasonably with somebody who works with boards and who understands charters and bylaws and all that good stuff. I really don't think we need to go shaking the bushes because we're afraid of a conspiracy.
All right, Alan, and then
Being the one who I'm assuming is being said to be afraid of a conspiracy, I would just refer us to our civility principles. I have no conspiracy thoughts in my head. I just know how human beings work, and when people work with each other, they develop an affinity for each other, and that's just human nature. And so it's just the way it is. The other thing that that keeps slipping from my mind but has come back is Joel's point that we have control of these documents.
Yeah.
I mean, except for, I guess, for the original deed.
Yeah.
So we could come to a decision as to what we want to do as a board, and then we could figure out how to make the documents reflect what we want to do.
As long as it's legal.
Well, that's what I mean.
Would there be a
I'm opening a
conflict with the
brothel.
village board charter or bylaw?
Well, okay, my thought is we are separate organizations from the village board, so I'm not as, I don't know about,
Andy,
to the extent that.
it seems to me that if we want to make this change, then we go through the hoops. If we decide we don't want to make this change, there are no hoops to go through.
Right.
So, that might be a decision as to whether we go ahead with this or not.
All right, I would like to make a motion that we table the ethics, this particular ethics change, and we ask for a legal opinion on the removal of directors, right? Correct?
Dick was saying exactly the opposite. Let's first decide whether we want to make this change,
I agree
then
with
find
that.
out whether it's the proposed way is legal or not.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, except I would point out, this question keeps coming up, can we remove, and it would really be good to get this thing settled.
I agree.
I mean, you're independent of whether we do, it's just, this question keeps coming up, and it's like, let's just get it settled. I'm sorry, Jenny and Shari.
Well, I would like to suggest we do both. We vote on this because this is a specific issue. We've heard from people about what they think. Maybe we have an opinion tonight and are ready to vote because we've been tabling. But then we also deal with the other, which is to get the legal opinion in broad terms of what we've been discussing. So we can do both.
Yeah, I think I'm tending more in the direction of what Andy is saying, because what we need to do first is do some analysis of what do our bylaws, what does our charter say, what do our bylaws say, and how are the villages in relation to us as far as the village representatives are concerned. And those are fundamental legal questions. And on that basis, then we know where where we have a legal standing, because that's what I was hearing from these different approaches. That it's not so much an ethical issue for the individual as it is a question for the board. And if the board doesn't have the right or is not the locus of control for that decision, then we could end up stumbling over our own bylaws or our own charter, and we just don't know at this point. And I've been on this board under two completely different situations, completely different interpretations, and so I would really love to get this resolved in some kind of way first.
Okay, so I made a motion. Anybody going to second my motion?
I'll second it.
Greg seconded. Table the ethics change and ask for the opinion from outside counsel on removal of a director.
All right.
Well, there's another piece to this, and that is
Council
who,
member
who,
and
who finds.
rates.
Yes,
and
removal
the
of a
council-
council member and director.
And director. Yeah,
Yes.
add that one too. Good.
And who
Thank you.
selects the lawyer?
It's going to be one of our retain,
And who talks to the law firm?
We can't hear you, Dick.
yeah. Valerie?
It's determining whether there's a conflict between relevant provisions in the charter and the bylaws, part of the motion.
Yeah, that's what they're looking. They're looking at our documents and that.
It's an analysis.
Right,
Just
yeah.
call it an analysis.
And I mean, I can tell you right now, truthfully, it would probably be Piper Marrow because they're so familiar with, they do work for the villages, they do David Bamberger, they do all that type of stuff.
Just for everybody's sake, though, I hate to reiterate what Sherry asked, but what exactly is the question now? The removal of board members and council members, right?
Right.
And then Valerie added something onto that.
Right, in regard
I
to,
was trying to determine whether what you all added was part of the motion.
in regard to our charter and bylaws.
With regard
To our documents.
How about
let's
our
just say
governing documents?
Our governing
Our governing
documents, yes.
Is it truly council member or council
And that'll give us the village.
Council representative, Columbia Council representative.
Yeah, because
So removal of council member and directors.
Council representatives.
council
Columbia Council representative.
Columbia
We'll
Council
use the
representative, sorry.
Official language.
Yes, and board members. And what was the last part again?
With regard to our governing.
Pursuant to our governing,
Right.
documents.
Pursuant to our governing documents.
Longer than the attorney that made these.
All right, I'm going to call the question on that. All those in favor of that motion?
Okay.
Let's see. It looks like Alan, Renee, Ginny, Lynn, Greg, Sherry, Nancy, Dick, Andy opposed, abstain. Janet abstains. All right. All right. Let's kind of move forward here. That takes care of the board votes. Lakefront. All right, we're getting late here. The reason we had this on is last work session we had Greg Fitchett come and tell us about HHC's plans, particularly for Neighborhood Square, as some of the things they're working on in terms of the lakefront. We do have money in the coming budget to hire a consultant, but what the board had said clearly is it wanted to kind of talk about that before we put out, any requests. And so I'm kind of looking for some guidance from the board and to say some.
I thought the board took the money out of the budget for 2020.
No, it took the 50,000.
Okay.
Right, it took the 50,000 out. The 100,000 is still there.
Oh, okay.
100,000 was in.
You were just taken away, so I thought you took it off.
No, we always
You still have a lot.
Yeah, it was
Still
only
have
the
a whole lot.
increase that was
Right. But it's just that it's pretty clear from all the discussions I've heard in the last several months is that the board needs to set some parameters, and we got to do it before because if we want to do it next year, there's a whole RFP process, there's a whole stuff, So what are the kind of parameters the board would like to set, Dick?
I think Andy wrote a very good position paper on what we want to do. I had only one thing, and I bet you know what it is.
Yes.
And that's the bell tower. I think it was a temporary thing. It looks pretty rinky-dink out there at the end of the dock with the two flags and all the guidelines holding it up. I would say that we need to find a better location for it or a better armature for it or something so it doesn't look so silly out there.
Great.
We had a whole big discussion of the bell tower when we agreed to put it where it was. What was the staff's, what's staff's vision for the bell tower?
It was an intermediate term solution, so it was.
You don't talk before you get there.
Sorry. It was an intermediate solution. So it was 10 years or 15, but it wasn't the long-term solution.
It was the 50th anniversary of
Correct.
Columbia, and we wanted to do something. The bells had been polished and ready to go, and we couldn't do anything serious because it would have been impact on the lake, which is a wetlands or whatever.
It's a waterway.
Waterway. So that determined, what we could do at that time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add. And Dennis, you can help me here. One of the reasons why we went for a temporary opportunity is because of the 50th birthday, and also because of all the EPA. What was it? The EPA, the Maryland Department of Water,
MDE.
and all of those would get involved.
Okay, well, but long term, so you're saying like another however many years, and then we look to maybe at that time do something more permanent with this, right?
I think that what you would do is take a look at the area that you consider town center and the lakefront, and define that. Is it the other side where the poster trees are, and how far does it go north and south? Define the area, and then define what the priorities are that you set. For instance, do you want a pathway continuously around there because that's an issue? Do you want to create options for outdoor dining? Is music and a stage really important and a permanent part of the downtown? Set what you want, like when you're building a house. I have to have these things. And then look at what's happening around you and how that affects what you want and where that goes, and start the process that way. So there's a lot happening, and we're a big player. We have the most important space down there, but to get to it, you have to go through somebody else's space.
Well, and to add to that, to get to it, how are we going to get to it?
Come by water.
By land or by sea?
Yeah, ferry boats.
Like drone.
Anything else, Nancy, you want? Anything else you want?
The canals, the Venice Canal. Tourism.
All right, Alan.
Yes, I'm just not real clear what we're being asked to discuss right now.
What we want at the lake.
Well, yeah, but is it what we want at the lake in the next little bit, or is it what we want at the lake going out a bunch of time?
There's $100,000 right now in the budget to determine planning, I imagine, and included in that planning is what?
That's a good question. Did
And,
we
I mean,
have a design?
so remember what happened. Groundswell came,
Yeah.
and there was not a good reaction to Groundswell. The thought was, well, it wasn't quite the way the board had wanted to go. That was my impression, okay, from hearing from everybody. And so I said, I want to go out with another consultant, bring them back in and have the same thing happen. I would rather, and I thought the board was pretty clear, that they kind of wanted to set some, I call them parameters, to give the contractor some guidance, the consultant some guidance, so when they come back, it doesn't look like Groundswell. I mean, that was my impression. Janet, Ginny, Dick.
Milton.
Oh, Milton, I'm sorry.
He's one of
So first, I'd like to see that space be a little bit more flexible and open. So I think the way it's structured now, and I think it's all ours that I'm thinking of, is a little bit hemmed in terms of the uses. And so it would be nice to see additional conversation between the land and the water with more interaction. But the biggest gripe I had with the Groundswell is how generic it was. And I didn't feel like there was anything in there that represented that they knew at all what Columbia was about. And so I think whoever we choose, it needs to be made really clear that we want them to create an identity that's not the same development that's been plopped in 10 other towns that have a lake. So something, not that you can't use components that are well used other places, but I just felt like the Groundswell was a recycling of an idea that they put in someplace else and decided that it would fit there too. So I didn't see anything in that plan that really said this is Columbia and this is representative of what Columbia is. I think it's very important that the path goes the whole way around, and I think there could definitely be a lot more interaction between and better flow between land and water.
Yep.
All right.
Is somebody
Jenny, Dick, and
tracking
Milton.
all these ideas, and do we have a way to make decisions on what we're actually going to put forward?
Trying to write these down.
What? Yeah.
Jenny,
Okay.
you're next.
Would it be helpful, at least I know it would be to me, if we put this on the next agenda and actually showed what the consultant, maybe we may not like what he or she did, but show what they did. I know some of us saw it, Renee didn't, but maybe see it again and be pointing to things and saying, I would prefer X there as opposed to Y that's being presented. I
think that's
more
because you
concrete.
don't want to design it for them. You want
Okay.
them to come up with a concept. If you say, I want a bench here, I want a table
No,
here.
not like that, but like a playground as opposed to, I don't know, something general.
I mean, I quite honestly, I think that infringes on their ability to think more broadly.
Okay.
Dick and Milton.
When you hire a designer, usually you give them a program or a set of objectives. You don't tell them what the design is going to be, but you say we need a performance space that'll hold an audience of X, or we need a dining space. We want to make sure the pathway runs through cleanly. I mean, you give them a set of objectives. And such a thing, for example, is we want something distinctively Colombian. We want the people tree to remain in a focal point. We want to do something about the bells. Anyway, you give them a list of things, and then when the design comes back, or the concept plan comes back, you say, does that, it does that, it does that, it does that, it doesn't do this. And that way, it isn't 10 people all trying to design a park.
Okay.
Lynn.
Yeah,
Your village.
there are going to be
sorry, Milton. I'm sorry. Milton was next. I'm sorry.
Guy's been over here all day.
I just wanted to ask Dennis, what is it a better approach? Could we just hire with, I guess, on a fee basis without having to go through what I'm looking for is someone that could come in, we could put 30 minutes on a work session, they can sit down, the board can share with that person their ideas, and that person could capture it, and it can be part of an RFP. Right now, we don't know what we want to put in an RFP to hire a design firm. So all I'm looking for is someone that we could hire on a fee basis. I'm hoping not going through an RFP process, where the board, they could come in, have a conversation with the board, capture the board thoughts, and then work with us to develop an RFP.
That work?
Yeah, we could. I think it's going to take a lot longer than 30 minutes, honestly. I think
Okay.
it's not a Saturday, but it's more than 30 minutes.
We have Saturday, 8 hours.
45 minutes, 60 minutes.
8 hours on Saturday.
Lynn and Susan.
Not me. Yeah. And I think, again, there are going to be so many changes down there. Howard Hughes is making it an entirely different space up above. We have the playground, we have the Veterans Memorial. The street's going to be there. It's going to be such a different place. I think it's really difficult without looking at that. We have to look at the whole space together, and I think we can't define specific goals absent looking at that whole. For instance, how much performance space do we want? We're going to have the playground up here. We're going to have the Veterans Memorial. We have a lot of stuff going on above us. We have a small temporary stage now, but we need access around the lake. They're just, it's a huge project. This is not necessarily a board project. It definitely is an architect's project with our input, but I think we have to look at the whole thing.
Susan?
I just was wondering if Jan could do some of that. Or we can talk about it, or on-call landscape architect or something.
We could find someone on call to do it. I still think that the board needs to set, and it could be done with the help of an architect or consultant, but set some general priorities that you want. These things I've got to have: the pathway continuous, performance space, the bell tower, whatever it is, or a signature Columbia element, and how far does it extend out of the what we call the lakefront now? Does it go around the entire lake? And then work with somebody on.
Okay, Dick, and then Sherry.
Yeah, I'd like to suggest that we're in no rush on this. We have a beautiful lakefront, and it's not broken. It can be improved, but it's not broken. And there's no need for us to race through this thing we might want to hold off a bit until we see Howard Hughes construction.
I was gonna say.
And see what it looks like, and see where the inadequacies are, and how they could, how we can match up, how we could fix them. So I don't think we're under a real time crunch here. And I'm just looking at, and also I think we need to bring the community in on this. I mean, it's their lakefront, and I'd like to get suggestions about how we can improve it, and make them part of the process. And sure, we could write down what we think are the objectives, but there might be other objectives too, and then we can compile a list of them and prioritize them, et cetera.
Yeah, I sort of agree with that. If you're talking about a really big capital investment, yet another really big capital investment going out years, it would be nice to do some survey research and find out what the community is interested in, what is working well, what could be improved. We're going to be losing trees. Maybe the community wants to see more trees and less things around the lake. We don't know. So why not commit some money up front instead of to construction and design, to doing some survey research so that we really get some input? That's one thing. The second thing is where capital investment is concerned. If you're talking about long-term, we have to figure out what the fiscal sustainability will be over time before committing to big, big funds. We have other types of projects like pools that have not been handled, that have been put on the back burner over and over and over again. But we're always hearing from the community that these are really important. So before we get real stars in our eyes, I would really like to see what those kinds of costs might be before any commitment to big building at the lakefront. So I kind of agree with Dick. There are some steps that need to be taken before we start moving into planning and design. And that's what Lynn was saying as well, that there are big changes going on. Let's get an overview first.
Alan. I'm not going to repeat what the two of them said, because I just say that I agree. I would like to make sure we don't just stop at survey research. I think there are other ways, focus groups, getting people down to the lakefront in groups to talk about what they'd like to see, so they're right there. The other thing I just want to put in people's heads is come up from time to time the idea of filling in the two lagoons. The one that's listed on page 95 of the packet that's called CA Owned Open Space Lot 7, which is watered. Right in sort of down the hillside, coming down from Clyde's and the new restaurant. If we filled that in, one idea was to fill that area in and turn that into the stage area, might get more seating and so on. And that's something that I think we as a board would have to really think about, indicate some openness to. Who knows how much money it would cost, but filling in those two lagoons would certainly increase the space that's available for things to happen. Because right now it's like the hill comes down and then there's the lake. It's hard to do much with that space.
Living there.
Greg? Yeah. I have to say, I definitely favor the idea of getting more feedback from residents. Where I draw the line, though, just in personal experience, is trying to do a survey. Surveys are just inherently problematic. They're difficult, and they often get weaponized. Depending on the results, then people argue about, well, is it significant? Did you do this? Did you do that? I think I prefer that we put this out as something we want resident feedback on. We get that feedback, and we use that. What Andy and Dick put together here, as far as a 2-page document, I think is a decent starting point to do what Dennis.
I didn't do that.
I thought this was yours too. Well, either way, whoever wants to take responsibility for it, I think it's a decent starting point to do what Dennis is talking about, which is coming up with some essential elements that we think we'd like to see in the downtown. Not specific things like, oh, there's got to be, tulips, none of that. But just generally what types of things we want to see. I mean, I could come up with some general things too, and I don't necessarily think we need a contractor to do that. I think we can do that maybe amongst ourselves and get that done sort of more efficiently, and then we can hand that off, whatever that thing turns into, hand that off to a designer to incorporate into a design. So I don't know. I just would prefer we do it that way.
So Milton, would it be possible to say have some members of CA Open staff who do landscaping and things like that meet with the board to kind of kick off and figure out these objectives instead of, as I said, going out to a consultant? And
Dennis with Jan.
I think it's Jan's terrific, and she does a great job on landscaping, but we're a long way from landscaping at the lakefront. There's a lot more involved than just landscaping. I would love to have her involved, but not at that level. I would bring in someone from outside who has a broader experience background.
all right, so we're running out of time here, so
Basically, if there's no rush to make a decision, you can just put it out, just wait. I heard tonight, let's wait. Do we, if I may, do we know the time frame when Howard Hughes is going to be moving forward on this work?
So they're planning to start the neighborhood square this summer, which I like to say is contractor speak for fall. But that's what I have from them.
Of which year?
Of this year.
The American Cities building will be imploded.
I have a question.
right now the American Cities building though comes down this summer.
In June.
Fire department's taking it over.
Yeah.
You got the thing.
Yes.
I have a question. I'm looking, this is actually the first clear understanding I've ever had of what our property is here. The steps that Hughes wants to put from where the American Cities building is, they're putting a plaza in, they want to put steps down to the lake. That looks like we own that whole piece.
We own most of that.
Those were suggestions, he said.
Well, I know they want to do that, and I'm just thinking, does this give us leverage on some other things?
Steps. Or is he talking about
It does. It absolutely does.
these steps now?
We should be sitting at the table.
Sure.
This is their.
Yeah, I think there are all kinds of goofy things here in terms of half the steps are owned by us and the other half are owned by somebody else. And I think it would be helpful also if we really could highlight those areas where we are right up against other folks that we have to talk to or who have to talk to us, so that we know ahead of time where these areas are, so that, if we are thinking of doing certain things and they ask for an easement, then we don't, give away stuff that we might want to develop or do something with. And I think it's very, very hard for us to see what those areas are. Is there some way that can become more clear, either I don't know, blow up this map, make it more detailed somehow.
Or just talk through it. Say, look, these steps are half on our property right now and half on someone else's property.
Can you actually, go through all that stuff?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think we really need to know that.
It's different colors or something, or.
Well, this is it.
But
This is it. It's in blue. What we own is blue.
And all the other
Who else
property
owns
is owned by
others?
Howard Hughes Corporation or subsidiaries, right?
Correct, although the neighborhood square will be turned over to the county.
Right, but right now they own
Right
it.
now, it's
Okay. So basically it's us and Howard Hughes. That's it. Do we have any indication that when they take the American Cities building down, they may take some trees down?
No, I don't have any indication of that.
They
I'll,
will.
I'll ask, I'll take a look at the plans,
They
but
did say that they, well, Jeff, or Greg, I mean, did say to me that they were going to use American Cities, once it's down, as a parking,
Yes.
spot
on the footprint of the existing
on the
building.
footprint of
Footprint of the
American
existing
Cities.
building, yes.
What trees are you referring to, Andy?
The trees along the,
Building.
no, kind of that little grove at the top where the Hug statue is.
Oh, right.
And remember, by the way, the Hug statue is on Howard Hughes property.
Right.
Okay, most of those trees on Howard Hughes property. And the trees that line basically the backdrop from when you look up the hill, I mean, where people sit, those trees also are scheduled to
And
go.
it blocks your view of the fireworks if you're sitting at Clyde's.
Jeez.
What's happening with the statues? Are they taking them down? Are they putting them into storage? The bear?
The last I heard is that they are putting them in storage and will reposition them at some future date.
Do we own those?
Yes,
Who
that's
owns those?
Oh,
We
they
not
own it.
them.
They own both of those.
And the tree.
I mean, all of them.
They own them.
Yep. Yes.
They own everything on their land.
Can we ransom the Hug?
The Hug, yeah, okay. I don't know. I was thinking the bear statue might be already gone. I know they've cordoned off a whole area. I don't know if it's still there, but they said they were going to preserve it.
I saw it yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, I think they're going to preserve that, and they're going to preserve the red sail that's down there too.
I think the sale might be moving to Symphony Woods.
Oh, okay.
Right now,
All right.
Vernon, what do you want us to
So,
come back with?
what does the board want?
Holding
We're
off
gonna wrap
makes
this up.
sense.
I think what we want is we should write down what we think our priorities are, our objectives are, not tactics, but what are our main objectives? And circulate that among the board, and maybe at a later meeting, we can prioritize them.
I move to table this until the board has made some email. I move to table this until we've,
There's no decision. There's no decision. It's only
There's
for
no motion
discussion.
to table.
all right.
All right, so look, why don't we do this? I'll give you guys until the meeting in April to come up with a list of objectives.
That's a month.
That's a month. You have a month. Okay, well, I'm certainly going to submit my stuff, but if there are anything else, I mean, Janet had a list. So by the last week in April, send out your suggestions on objectives for the lakefront, right?
Yep. I went last week, April.
By the last week in April, whatever that Monday is, and I don't know what that Monday is. I don't have a calendar.
Second is Sunday.
Send them to the board. I mean, we'll send them to me and CC the board.
Not board members as a list.
Yeah,
just-
right. We have board members, but just make sure you send them to the board.
And Dennis?
You can send them to.
Yeah, just send them to the board and we'll get them.
Right, because Milton's on the board list.
Monday, the 22nd.
Monday the 22nd, so we want to know everything by Monday the 22nd.
That's Earth Day.
That's good. Good day, yeah.
Remember.
All right. We are actually kind of out of time. Anything else? If not, I'll adjourn the meeting. I want to thank everyone for coming.